All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to begin the trial of this case with the opening statements, and as I told you in the opening charges, these statements are not evidence in this case. It is simply the attorney's contentions as to what they think the issues in this case are. Ms. Walter, Ms. Waller, who wishes to make a statement?
May it please the court, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. This week you're going to hear facts and evidence in this case. And those facts and evidence are going to tell a story. And it's going to be a familiar story because it's a tale as old as time. It's the story of an affair, a pregnancy, and a murder. And the victim of that murder is Gregory Rice, the defendant's, the father of 4 of her children. And when you look at the facts and evidence and events that you're going to hear about this week, there's one person who connects all of those things. There's one person at the center of everything you're going to hear. And that person is Meagan Jackson. She's sitting right over there. Now, when you look at Meagan Jackson, you may think, she looks meek, mild. She's a small woman. But looks can be deceiving. And this defendant is certainly deceiving. She deceived Greg Rice. She deceived our co-defendant, Christopher Dontel. She deceived Christopher Dontel's wife, Erica Dontel. And she deceived law enforcement. So as you're watching this, make no mistake. The defendant may look like a victim or portray herself that way. She may look meek and mild, but she is a master manipulator. And that's what she did in this case. And not only is she a master manipulator, she was literally in the business of death. Her job back in 2020 when this occurred was as a body transport person, a body mover. So what she would do, she worked for a company that whenever someone died of natural causes, or if it was a homicide or even a gruesome accident, she would respond in her van and she would pick up the body and she would take it wherever it needed to go. So that's what she did. And in the course of that job and that employment, she met a man named Christopher Dontel. Christopher Dontel was also in the business of death. Before she got the job as a body transport business person, that's what he did. And he trained her. And then he became a deputy coroner, and it was his job, much like Meagan, to respond to these scenes of death and to fill out paperwork and to perform the duties of the coroner. In the course of that employment, Meagan Jackson and Christopher Dontel saw one another very often, and they became close. Now, Christopher Dontel at the time he had a pretty good life, a pretty normal, I would say, everyday life. He worked as a deputy coroner. He was married to a school teacher. Community. And at the same time, Meagan Jackson had been in a relationship with Gregory Rice, the victim in this case. They shared 4 kids. About approximately a year before this murder occurred, she and Gregory Rice broke up. They were no longer together, but they were kind of always connected because they shared these 4 kids. You know, if you share kids, you're going to always have to talk to someone. They would speak about the kids. They would text and call, and that's really what their communications were about. So after Meagan broke up with Greg, she pretty quickly moved on to Christopher Dontel. She set her sights on him, and she basically infiltrated his life. She literally bought a house in the same neighborhood right down the street from him. She befriended his wife. She befriended his kids. She started buying the family expensive gifts with an inheritance she had gotten and made promises of more. She spent her days hanging out with his wife and Christopher Dontel. She became, in a large part, a third party in their marriage. And because Christopher Dontel and Meagan Jackson were kind of dealing in death, they were doing this job where they were transporting bodies and responding to these scenes, they had a reason to be out at all hours of the day or night without anyone raising any suspicions with anyone. They could be together, they could be out all night, they could spend the night, he could spend the night at her house, and no one thought anything. She actually started an affair with Dontel and conducted that affair right under his wife's nose. She was hiding in plain sight, and she was deceiving everyone. So around I'll say September 2020, a couple of things happened that kind of changed things. The first thing that happened is Meagan Jackson got pregnant with Christopher Dontel's child. At the same time, someone anonymously began exposing the affair between Meagan Jackson and Christopher Dontel to Erica Dontel, his wife, through texts and emails that kind of had pictures and statements about what had been going on. That was done anonymously, but Meagan Jackson represented to Dontel that Greg Rice was responsible for those things. Now, the judge said that you're the judge of the facts, and I'm going to ask you, as you're watching the facts and evidence that's presented in this courtroom, ask yourself, who had the biggest motive to blow up Christopher Dontel's marriage? Ask yourself that question. So that was going on, and then on October 2nd, 2020, Gregory Rice disappeared. A Friday night, he just disappeared. And Meagan Jackson began acting very quickly to divert suspicion away from herself. That weekend, she had an officer do a welfare check on Gregory Rice. She showed up at his house when normally she would make him come pick up the kids. That Monday morning, she showed up at the police department, filed a missing persons report, and in the course of filing that report, she tried to portray Greg as some degenerate drug user, which was the furthest thing from the truth. He basically went to work, took care of his kids, and stayed home. He was a homebody. So she was trying to divert suspicion. But police began looking for Gregory Rice, and they do what police do. They start looking first at people closest to him. So they look at Meagan Jackson. They just see quickly that she's having an affair with Christopher Dontel. The other thing that police start doing when they're looking for someone is they start looking at cell phone records. I'm sure, although I know you're not allowed to have them now, that almost everyone here has a cell phone, and you pretty much take it with you everywhere you go. I know I do. And when your cell phone, when you make a call or you get a text, or sometimes when your phone's just running an app in the background or doing something, it connects to the cellular network and it hits these towers that are located around the county. There's one pretty close to the courthouse you may have seen. And based on those kind of cell phone records, police can identify the approximate location of people, where they are. They can kind of track movements that way. So police began looking at Gregory Rice's cell phone records. And one of the most striking things they noticed is the last person that he spoke to the night he disappeared, October 2nd, 2020, was Meagan Jackson. Police also start looking to see where Greg was. So once they realize that Meagan Jackson's having this affair, that she's the last person to speak to Greg Rice on the phone, or it looks like that's the last phone call weekend, suspicion falls on her and Christopher Dontel pretty quickly. The last phone call weekend, suspicion falls on her and Christopher Dontel pretty quickly. But nobody knows where Greg Rice is, so they haven't found him. Now, police know the longer Greg is missing, the less likely they are to find him alive. So as time passes, police begin to suspect strongly that Greg Rice is dead. And lo and behold, about a month after he goes missing, Donna Sue Souls was setting catfish lines in the Little PD River. For those of you who don't know, that's the geographical border between Horry and Marion County. They were setting catfish lines in the middle of the night. They happened upon the body of Greg Rice. Greg had been shot. He had been wrapped in a tarp that was zip tied. Someone had taken ratchet straps and wrapped around it and weighted it down with cinder blocks to try to, and dumped him in the river. So that's a big break in the case for police. It also gives them a new lead to follow. That lead is they start looking at the tarp and the cinder blocks and all these items that Greg's wrapped in, and they start going to stores around Horry County to see if any store sells those items in particular, because those items have tags on them. So they end up going to Lowe's Home Improvement, which is a national chain, I'm sure you all know, and they speak to the security officer, and he starts looking at receipts. And he finds a receipt from October 3rd, the day after the murder, where a person bought all of those items together and I think a Pepsi Zero. So he goes and he says, that's a rather suspicious shopping list. It's basically a murder dump kit. So he goes and looks at surveillance footage, and he finds Christopher Dontel pushing a shopping cart through the Lowe's checkout line with a cart with a tarp, zip ties, cinder blocks, and ratchet straps. And that leads police. They start looking for surveillance video. They know the body was dumped in the Little PD River. So they start looking for routes you would take to get there from kind of this area, the beach area where Christopher Dontel lived. And they find surveillance footage from a convenience store, Little PD Exchange, showing Christopher Dontel going back and forth to the dump site in his county vehicle. At the same time, of course, suspicion has already fallen on Christopher Dontel and Meagan Jackson, but at that time, police start looking a little closer. And they start looking at cell phone records, any surveillance they can get. They look at license plate readers. And for those of you who don't know, license plate readers are cameras. A lot of municipalities have them, and the Myrtle Beach has some out on the highways that the cameras capture the license plate of your car as you pass by. So you can tell where cars are on the highway sometimes by looking at these license plate readers. So police start looking at cell phone records, surveillance, and license plate reader to track the movements of Meagan Jackson, Christopher Dontel, and Gregory Rice. And what do they discover? Well, the most striking and obvious thing police discover is that Meagan Jackson and Christopher Dontel were together the entire night of October 2nd, the night that Greg went missing. They left, they met up about 6:30 in the evening at the Lewis Ocean Bay Heritage Preserve. That's just a wildlife management area where you can go, you can see endangered plant species or walk around and look at nature. But what they were there for, police find out later, was target practice. They were actually shooting guns. Meagan liked to shoot, so that's what they were there doing that day that Greg was murdered. They left there, they went to Abuelo's, which is a restaurant, Coastal Grand Mall, you may have seen it. They're on surveillance camera there eating for about an hour. They leave around 8. And then they come back. Christopher Dontel comes back about an hour later, about 9 o'clock, to use the bathroom. He tells police that in that hour they were driving around conducting their affair, that he was receiving oral sex from Meagan, that that's what they did when they were together. They eventually end up at Myrtle Beach Funeral Home. Now, Myrtle Beach Funeral Home is a funeral home. It's on the bypass over near Market Common. You probably know where that is. It's basically a crematorium. Meagan Jackson and Christopher Dontel had access to that funeral home because of their jobs. The county sometimes would store bodies in the coolers there if there were just not enough room at the coroner's office. So they were there, and their cell phone records put them there. Around 9:45, Meagan Jackson calls Greg Rice. And these are approximate times. Around 10 o'clock, she calls him a second time. At the same time, her body transport van, the one that she uses for work when she's doing her job as a body mover, is seen entering the homeowners associations, entering the gate of Arrowhead community where Greg lived. It captured on the homeowners association's license plate reader. She goes in there, or her van goes in there. It stays 6 or 7 minutes and then out. At the same time, from 5 o'clock to 10 o'clock that night, Greg Rice's phone is hitting off the tower near his apartment right there at Arrowhead at Flint Lake Apartments. So it doesn't look like he's moving, it looks like he's home. But around 10, the same time Meagan Jackson's van shows up in his neighborhood, his phone starts moving. And what his phone does is it travels to the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home. At the same time it's traveling, Meagan Jackson's van is traveling toward the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home, hitting license plate readers along the highway, the major highways in Myrtle Beach. So Greg's phone and Meagan's van go back to Myrtle Beach Funeral Home. Now Greg's phone stays there a little while and makes some data connections. So I told you before, whenever you use your phone, sometimes you're making calls or texts, and that's a user-initiated action that causes your phone to connect. But sometimes your phone connects without you doing anything. It can have something running in the background or some app that uses cellular data, and it'll connect without the user actually doing anything. So just because Greg's phone is connecting does not mean that he's alive. It just means that his phone is there. So eventually, Christopher Dontel and Meagan Jackson, you can see from phone records and LPR, start traveling towards the Lowe's Food on International Drive. That's an important location for them. That's where they would go to leave cars so that they could conduct their affair, so that they would there was just a place to leave the car, essentially. It's kind of close to the neighborhood. It's right by the Lewis Ocean Bay Heritage Preserve, where they were going for target practice. And around 11 o'clock at night, a computer store in that shopping center captures Meagan Jackson and Christopher Dontel on camera. Christopher Dontel has a bag. Meagan Jackson's there. Importantly, at the same time, Greg Rice's phone makes a data connection to a tower that would put him in the same vicinity, around 11 o'clock, a little after 11 o'clock that night. That's the last time Greg's phone ever made any connection with the tower. After that, it's just gone. So that's the last time Greg Rice's phone makes a connection. After that, Meagan Jackson, we learned later that Greg Rice was in the cooler at the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home, his body. After that, Meagan Jackson and Christopher Dontel go back to the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home to get they were getting belongings so that she could put some of those belongings to set up this welfare check that she did the next day to make it look like he had wandered off an OD. So they went back to get that. But something else happened that's a bit unusual. When they got there, around 12:45 that night, there was a trade embalmer there. And as I said, everyone in this case is kind of in the business of death. The trade embalmer, because Myrtle Beach Funeral Home doesn't have a full-time embalmer, they mostly cremate bodies. The trade embalmer would come on a contract basis and embalm bodies, and he did that kind of whenever it's convenient for him. You'll hear from him. So he was there at 12:45 a.m. that night. He was there in the middle of the night embalming a body. So when Christopher Dontel and Meagan Jackson showed up, he saw them there. And he'll tell you that. He saw Christopher Dontel there. And they left. They stayed together, kind of, you'll see on tape, they're kind of going back and forth. And then finally, they spend the night together, and then around 8:15 the next morning, they go back to Lowe's Food, and they get in their cars and go their separate ways. So back in December of this year, that's kind of what law enforcement knew about this case. And much like we did here today, Ms. Walter and I, the state of South Carolina, we called Christopher Dontel's case to trial, just like we did today. We picked a jury, the same thing. We went through everything. And then as I was sitting in my chair, getting ready to stand up, Christopher Dontel shocked everyone by standing up himself and voluntarily pleading guilty to accessory after the fact of murder with no agreement with the state. That was also allowed law enforcement to fill in some blanks. Christopher Dontel, after he did that, agreed to speak to law enforcement to kind of fill in a lot of missing pieces of this puzzle. You're going to hear from Christopher Dontel. He's going to testify. I have no doubt that Meagan Jackson's attorneys will make a big deal out of the fact that Christopher Dontel has a motive to minimize his conduct and point the finger at Meagan Jackson. The judge has already told you. You, the jury, can decide what to believe, whether you believe some of what he says or all of it. He's going to tell you that night, when he and Meagan Jackson were at the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home, she called Greg Rice because she wanted to go confront him. And that Christopher Dontel and Meagan Jackson took that body transport van into Arrowhead when it hit that license plate reader. And they went in there, and Meagan Jackson called Greg, and when he came walking up to the car, she got out and shot him and killed him. And the two of them hustled out of that van and put him on their body transport stretcher, and they threw him in the back and went back to Myrtle Beach Funeral Home, where they put him in the cooler while they decided what to do. All of that testimony matches what law enforcement already knew. There's nothing that he's saying to us that is not borne out by those cell phone records, surveillance records, and LPR records. You'll see then, too, the next day is when he goes and buys this body dump kit and takes the body, dumps Greg Rice in the Little Feedy River. So you decide what to believe in this case. You decide who you think is responsible for the murder of Gregory Rice. Gregory Rice, and you're going to hear from Christopher Dontel, you're going to see Meagan Jackson sitting over there. The only thing Christopher Dontel and Gregory Rice have in common is Meagan Jackson, who's sitting right over there. That's the only thing. The judge is going to instruct you on the law at the end of this case. He's going to tell you about conspiracy. That's just what it sounds like. It's two people getting together to commit a crime. He's going to give you the definition of murder. In South Carolina, we don't have degrees of murder. We have one definition, and that definition is it's the killing, intentional killing of another person with malice aforethought. None of you guys need that definition to know that shooting someone, wrapping them up in a tarp, and weighing them down with cinder blocks and throwing them in the river is murder. But what you do need to know about South Carolina is South Carolina has something called the hand of one is the hand of all. I'm going to read you what that means. This is the legal definition. If two or more people are together, acting together, assisting each other in committing the offense, the act of one is the act of all, or as it's sometimes said, the hand of one is the hand of all. Two people can be guilty of killing another person when only one of the two had a gun, there was only one bullet, and only one of the two fired the shot that caused the death. So what I'm asking you to do is, if at the end of this case, which I think it's pretty clear and obvious, who's responsible for the death and for the murder of Gregory Rice? And at the end of this case, if you believe that Christopher Dontel and Meagan Jackson are responsible for the murder of Gregory Rice, then there's only one verdict, and that's guilty.
All right, does the defense wish to make an opening statement?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
All right, may it please the court? Yes, sir.
I'll be honest with you, I thought she was going to say Dontel at the end there, because that's what it sounded like, right? That at the end of all that Dontel was the one, the hand. Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Case Britton, and I don't want to talk at you guys. I really do my best not to talk at you guys. I'm here with my father, Tommy Britton. I'm here with my younger brother. He hates it when I say that, Preston Britton. I'll be taking a little personal moment here. This is the joy of my life. Probably the last time this will happen. I get to try a case with my father and my brother, but the actual brains are back at the office. I have a younger sister, and we have a new attorney too, Lauren Benton, and also a good staff of paralegals and assistants, which we couldn't be here without. That's the Britton Law Firm plug. So I want to talk about our roles here today. I'm a little different than most people, most lawyers. I like to talk with you guys, and I know y'all can't really talk back with me, but if I just don't want to seem like I'm talking at you, right? It's very tough for me to do because I'm here and y'all don't get to say anything back. But I just want to kind of talk about our roles here today. Our role, honestly, as a defense counsel, if I wanted to, I'd go sit down over there. I'd go sit down, I'd go talk to Mr. Britton. Mr. Britton would say, look, we're not going to say anything else. We don't have to say anything. We don't have that burden. We don't have to say a word. We could let the state put up a witness after witness after witness, introduce evidence, introduce evidence, introduce evidence, and we could just sit there. Not question them, not cross-examine, just let the evidence speak for itself. The evidence, and we'll talk about evidence and the types of evidence here in just a second. That's what we could do, but we'll probably engage with the witnesses that we put up, and we might put up some cases and some witnesses too. Now the state, let's go back to the state in a second. You heard the judge, and now I have to be very careful when I talk about the judge because he is the rule. He's the man, he's in charge here. Solicitor and I, we may get some little arguments about something, whether it's admissible. I may not like her tone, although I very much doubt that. She may not like that tone. I probably can get that way. Sorry. I apologize if I come off gruff at sometimes or condescending. I don't mean that. But the judge is the one that tells y'all or us if we are right or wrong. Sustained, whoever made that objection, it's allowed. Overruled, can't do that. He's that guy. And then he, of course, like he said, he instructs you on the law. And he'll do that at a later date. Now, the heaviest lift in this whole entire courtroom, maybe besides y'all, the state. You've all heard these glorious things before. The burden of proof. It's heavy on the state. Innocent until proven guilty, right? Innocent until proven guilty. The state has that burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. And another fun little term there, reasonable doubt. We'll get back to that as well. That my client, who is shrouded in innocence, was presumed innocent all the way until y'all say she's guilty. Until the state proves that beyond reasonable doubt. That's the burden they have through all their evidence that they have. Now let's talk about the evidence they have. You have usually two types of evidence. You got direct evidence and you've got circumstantial evidence. Direct evidence, though, is like DNA, blood, crime scene photos. That's funny too, crime scene photos. So I'm not going to say there's not a lot of evidence. I'm not going to say there's zero evidence, zero direct evidence. But in a murder case, I'd like to see a lot more. I'd like to see a murder weapon. Don't have it. I'd like eyewitness testimony. Don't have any eyewitness testimony. I like video of the crime. I don't have video of the crime. I like audio of the crime. I don't have audio of the crime. I don't have any of that. I don't have any of that direct evidence. The stuff that a murder case should have. You have the weapon. Well, but let's talk about circumstantial evidence. Because this case is loaded with it. Now, circumstantial evidence, I like circumstantial evidence. It gets a bad rap in like TV shows, and you heard the judge talk about that in movies. You know, it wasn't me, it was the one-armed man. You know, that kind of stuff. Those things. It's circumstantial. I love it because it requires y'all to infer. It requires y'all to question. Does it prove what it says it proves? A really good example, and I have to give my brother credit for this. You walk outside, the ground's wet. You remember last night, forecaster didn't say it was going to rain. Ed didn't say it was going to rain. So you think, well, maybe it rained. Also, possibly though, did your sprinkler system turn on? So what in the world could help you figure that out? Well, you kind of look over at your neighbor's yard. Well, his ground's wet too. What does that prove? Nothing, but except both your grounds are wet. Because his sprinkler system could somehow run at the same time as yours. All right, so maybe you look to your neighbor to the left. Holy cow, his lawn is wet too. Now, if I'm the person that walked out and looked right and left, I'm starting to think, okay, it rained last night. I must have missed something. Quick shower. Hey, you live in Myrtle Beach, international waterway, rains in Conway, doesn't rain in Myrtle Beach. That happens, right? That's plausible. It's possible, all right? Then you look across the street, and it's like the Sahara Desert. Your neighbor's got not a drop of land over there. You look to the left of his house, dry as land over there, and you look to the right of his house, sprinkler system's still going on, and there's a flood going on. What do we know? We're pretty sure it didn't rain. And we're pretty positive that Earl on the end on the right there has got a flood. He forgot to turn the sprinkler system off, right? So the circumstance is different because the way you view it. You have to add it. You have to link those chains. You have to see that the fact that your neighbor's yard is wet, that makes it a stronger connection that something happened that made the ground wet. It doesn't necessarily prove that it was rain or prove that it was sprinklers. So you look to your neighbor's yard. It does the same thing. It's wet, but it doesn't necessarily prove it. It does make the causation, the link stronger. But then you look across the street and you see that's not wet. It's dry. So what do you know? You know that no matter how strong this link, it doesn't matter. It doesn't prove that it came from the sprinklers. But it doesn't prove that it came from the rain. You need that other inference. You need to look at all the surroundings, everything. That's what circumstantial evidence is. Now, in this case, we got a ton of it. A ton of it. Yes, you heard Madam Solicitor talking about the phones being together. Every single thing you heard Madam Solicitor say, guess who else was in there? Donatella. Then she goes at the end there, one of my favorite parts, the hand of one is the hand of all. So are they trying to tell you that you can convict Dontel? Just go ahead and convict Megan Jackson too? Is that what they're trying to tell you? That if you can infer from all the evidence that Dontel is the one at the beginning of this, the end of this, the middle of this, and the one that has the most to lose, the one that has the motive? Deputy coroner, wife and kids? Meagan Jackson had written Greg Rice off. She's done. 15 years. Gone. See ya. Bye. She's already done something. She didn't need to do anything with him anymore. But a deputy coroner? Don't touch me, man. I'm a deputy coroner. He's got something to lose. That's motive. Again, circumstances. I want you're going to hear all kinds of evidence. We're going to try to cross-examine the best we can. Take each piece of evidence. Look at it. Look at the circumstances. Seriously. Most defense, when you've got a criminal defense attorney up here telling you to look at all the evidence, how many times do you hear that? How many times do you hear a criminal defense attorney say, look at this. Look at it. Look. Yeah, I know some bad things are going on here, but look. Really look at it. And if you can do all that, and I worry about it, because society's a little awful. I feel like we want the worst sometimes. Flip on the news. War, gun, who got shot today? It's a bad time out there right now. Now I'm a little different. I really am. I look for the best in people. It's probably because I guess it's why I do what I do. I'm always searching. And it's not about me, but I'm always searching for the best in people. Every single person. Every single one. You. Everyone in here too. Love them. Don't know them. We have a chance in this courtroom, these halls of justice, to show that the presumption of innocence is paramount. All right? That innocent until proven guilty, means something. Means something. It means that you don't convict somebody of a murder without a murder weapon. You don't convict somebody of a murder without any video of a crime or a shooting, any audio of a crime, of the crime they're accused of, or shooting, or any 911 calls from an apartment complex of that evening with 5 shots. No 911 calls. 0. We don't do that here. We don't convict on circumstances that don't add up. It's like baking a cake or making some soup or whatever, missing the salt. You have to have everything. You have to have everything. And I guarantee you, well, hold on a second. One of my big things I was told many times before I came up here, do not overpromise because you got to be afraid to underdeliver. Always got these little cliches. That's why I can't stand up this stuff. I just want to talk to y'all about it. I'm not trying to overpromise anything and underdeliver anything. I'm just trying to talk. We don't convict people on these kinds of charges, of these charges, of these serious charges, with no murder weapon, no video of the crime, no audio. You just don't do it. Presumption of innocence means something to people. We just can't do it. And I guarantee you, I hope that we can take ourselves out of this negative world, look at this evidence that's going to be presented. Direct, as much or as little as there is. Circumstantial, as much as little as there is. Remember that she's innocent until proven guilty. And look at everything. Everything. And say presumption of innocence means something. It does. And we will come back with not guilty. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we begin the evidentiary portion, I think we're case may be. Do not discuss the case even among yourselves. Leave your notepads in the jury box. We'll take about a 10 or 15 minute break and we'll come back and get started. Thank you very much.
Raise your right hand and place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give to court in this case be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Could you just state your name and then spell your last name for the court?
Savannah Rice, R-I-C-E.
Now you're on.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And Savannah, I know you're nervous, I get it. If you can just make sure you speak into the microphone and just slow down a little bit so that the court reporter can hear what you're saying, okay? And you always have to give what we call a verbal response, so if I ask you a question that's yes or no, you just have to verbally say yes or no, okay?
Okay.
How old are you today?
I'm 19.
Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have 2 sisters, a half-sister, and a little brother.
What are your parents' names?
Gregory Rice and Meagan Jackson.
Were they ever married?
No.
How would you describe your father?
He was a very flawed man, but we all did know he cared very much about his kids and his work, and he tried very hard for the people around him.
How would you describe your parents' relationship?
It was not great at all. There was constant fighting. They were mean to each other, they were mean to the kids. Just they weren't compatible. You didn't hear "I love you" very much throughout the house.
You said you didn't hear "I love you" very much, but did you ever hear your parents say "I love you" to each other?
No.
At some point, did your parents break up?
Yes.
Do you know about when that was?
There was twice. The first time I was probably around 9. He was cheating on her. The second time, they just needed to go their separate ways, and it was a mutual breakup.
When your parents broke up, did they begin living in separate houses?
The second time, yes.
Where did you and your brother and your 2 sisters live?
We lived mainly with my mother.
Did your brother and sisters go to stay or visit with your father from time to time?
They did almost every weekend.
What about you?
I chose to stay home.
Okay. And that's okay. Why did you choose to stay home?
He would make me nervous, but also my mom would tell me that we would go do something fun together, so she would bribe me to stay home, and I would.
Did you, despite the fact that you did not go over very often, did you still maintain contact with your father?
To the best of my ability. My phone was disabled due to my mother. I could only receive calls.
When your brother and your sisters would go to stay with your father, would he pick them up and drop them off? Would your mother pick them up and drop them off? How did that work?
My dad always came to the house to pick them up, and he would bring them back as well.
When your father would come to pick your siblings up, did you go out and talk to him at all?
Yes, I would go out and I would have a chat with him, tell him I loved him, give him a hug. That was about it. I'd tell him if I was going to come over the next week or not.
At some point after your parents began living separately, did you meet a man named Christopher Dontel?
Yes, I did.
How did you meet him?
I met Chris because one, knew that he worked with my mom, but 2, we moved into his neighborhood and I met his family and we started to hang out with his family and him.
So when you say his family, was he married?
Yes.
Did he have children?
Yes.
How many kids did he have?
He had 2 children.
Do you know about how old they were?
I believe the son was around maybe 1 and the daughter was 6, I believe.
Yeah. And you said that you guys moved into the same neighborhood as the Dontel family?
Yes.
About how far away did you live from them?
It was like 3 minute, right down the road, just down our street and down another street and into a cul-de-sac.
So was it walking distance?
Yes.
Did your family and the Dontels spend a lot of time together?
Yes.
At some point, did you come to know that your mother was having an affair with Christopher Dontel?
Yes, but not at first.
Okay. How did you find out about the affair?
I had some friends over and it was quiet. We went downstairs and we heard them having sex in their bedroom and it just kept getting louder and louder. And the next day I asked her and she said, "I thought you knew."
Do you know about how long that was before your father went missing? And if you don't, it's okay.
I don't remember.
Okay. This will sound like a silly question, but do you remember when your father went missing?
October 2nd.
What do you remember about sort of that time period?
Before or after?
Right after, when you found out that he was missing. So October 2nd was a Friday night, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happened the next morning?
She woke up, we all got up. She got the kids ready to bring them to our dad's, which I already thought was weird because he always came to pick them up and he would come in to see me or I'd go out to see him, which it didn't happen this morning. So she got the kids in the car and
If you just take some time to breathe, it's okay. Do you need some water?
she brought the kids to his house and she called me and she was really frantic. She said she had searched everywhere. I'm sorry.
It's okay, take your time.
She had said she had searched everywhere. She looked in his car. She couldn't see his keys or his wallet or his phone. She looked in the windows and then she said she's gonna call the police. And they came back. And that was really just...
When you say they came back, who do you mean?
Madison, Blake, Dakota, my siblings, and my mom.
Okay. So that was the morning of October 3rd. How did your life change after your father went missing?
My mom wasn't home even more often. She wasn't home due to her job most of the time, but it became a lot more when he went missing. Everybody was really emotional. We didn't go out at all. My mom did, but we didn't. We really just stayed in the house.
It's okay, take your time. Do you remember when they found your father's body?
Yes. I do.
What do you remember about that?
I was at my best friend's house, and her mom came in the room. She told me not to go onto any of my electronics, but she didn't know that one of my friends from the neighborhood had already told me. I didn't believe it, but
this is kind of like a big other. Was there anything significant about that day besides the fact that they found your father's body?
that they told us my mom had something to do with it, and that all of my siblings would have to be living somewhere else.
Well, no, I mean, November 7th or 8th. Is there anything about... When's your birthday?
November 7th.
Did your mother ever mention your father during the time between when he first went missing and when they found his body?
I can't perform.
So you can answer that. Did your mother ever say anything about your father between the time that he went missing and the time that they found his body?
Yes.
Can you just tell us about that? Take a couple deep breaths if you need, but tell us about that.
She had come home drunk one night, and I was in the kitchen, and my sister she wasn't behaving, and I told my mom, and she started screaming, and my sister was upstairs, but then she looked at me, and she said, "I hope what happened to your dad happens to your sister." And I asked her, "What do you mean?" And she just wouldn't say anything.
And that was before they found your father's body? My last question for now. Did the state reach out to you and ask you to come here today, or did you reach out to us?
No, I called you guys
And why did you do that?
because I believe that she.
This guy calls it speculation.
I want to tell my
Okay,
truth.
I think you can't answer that question, so we'll just,
Oh,
that's okay. That's okay. I don't have any other questions for you. Mr. Britton's going to ask you some questions. If you need a break, just let us know. Okay?
Cross-examination.
No question, Ms. Ross.
All right, you may step down.
Please raise your right hand and place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that evidence you're about to give the court in this case be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Get you to state your name and then spell your last name for the court.
Isaiah Perkins, last name is Perkins.
Officer Perkins, where do you work?
I work for the Horry County Police Department,
How long have you worked there?
6 years.
What's your current assignment at Horry County PD?
I am a patrol supervisor.
What are some of your duties and responsibilities as a patrol supervisor?
I oversee the officers patrolling the precinct I'm assigned to, making sure they're doing their jobs correctly.
How long have you had that position?
2 years.
Let's turn your attention back to October 2020. What was your position back in October 2020?
I was a patrol officer in the South Precinct.
And what area does the South Precinct cover?
It covers Highway 501 south to the Georgetown County line.
What were some of your duties and responsibilities back then?
To patrol the area and respond to calls for service that were called in during my shift.
Was one of your duties back then to perform what's called a welfare check?
Yes, ma'am.
So tell me, what is a welfare check?
A welfare check is when someone, say like a family member or a friend, hasn't spoken to someone for an extended period of time or had a concern about their welfare. They would call us to go out and make sure they're okay.
So when you went out to make sure they were okay, kind of tell me what you would do, how you would do the welfare check.
So I respond out there. I would try knocking on the door, making contact with the person. If I don't make contact with that person, I usually call all the local hospitals and check the jails to make sure they're not actually missing or need help immediately.
Okay. Were you assigned to perform a welfare check for the victim in this case, Gregory Rice?
I was.
Can you tell me what address you responded to?
I'm not quite sure on the exact address, but it was the Flint Lake apartment complex off of Clay Pond Road.
Okay. And did that call, how did you get that call?
It was given to me by the dispatcher.
Did any other officers respond with you?
No, ma'am.
Okay. What did you do upon arrival at that Flint Lake apartment address?
When I got there, I witnessed the defendant standing outside the unit door. She told me kind of what was going on with the situation. She had dropped something off a couple of days ago prior to, and those items were still there. So she had called in a welfare check for us to check on them.
Okay. Were you familiar with Meagan Jackson before you performed the well check there that day?
I was.
But how did you know her?
She was a transporter for the coroner's office. I often saw her on calls where someone was deceased and she would come and take possession of the body.
Did you also know Christopher Dontel?
I did.
Did you ever see Meagan Jackson and Christopher Dontel together?
Often.
Was that unusual?
It was not.
What did you do to try to locate Greg Rice that day?
So that day, we actually got a hold of the property manager who had a key for the apartment. So we checked the apartment to make sure he wasn't in there. Seeing his wallet, phone, car keys in the unit at the front door, I checked local hospitals and the jails to make sure he wasn't there.
Did you actually go in the apartment personally that day?
I did not.
Did Meagan Jackson go in the apartment?
She did.
Was Greg Rice at that apartment?
He was not.
What did you do after the welfare check was over?
While walking back to my car, I had asked the defendant if she wanted me to do a report for him being a missing person, and she especially didn't need to at the time.
Okay, no further questions for this witness.
Cross-examination.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, officer. When you were out there at Flint Lake Apartments, did anybody approach you about having heard gunshots the night before?
No, sir.
Was it, no, sir?
No.
Okay. When you were out at Flint Lake Apartments, did you happen to see any bloodstains on any sidewalk or any area around the apartment?
No, sir.
How about you step on any shell casings from a bullet?
No, sir.
Didn't identify any shell casings, and there was no witness to come forward and tell you they heard gunshots the night before?
No, sir.
Meagan Jackson was there,
She was.
and she was, I think you understood, she was part of making the call to have someone come check on Mr. Rice. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Was there anything else that you observed from any witness on the scene other than Meagan Jackson? Were any other witnesses there?
Not that I can remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
And no, so nobody after, where are we? We're within 24 hours of an alleged 5 or 6 gunshots. Is that correct? That's your understanding?
I don't-
Objection on our basis of knowledge.
Okay.
It's just
It's your understanding that the murder they're claiming occurred at Flint Lake Apartments on October 2nd. Is that your understanding, officer?
From that day,
Okay.
I wasn't aware that there was any.
Not that day. As we see here today, you understand that they're trying to accuse my client of murdering Greg Rice at Flint Lake Apartments on October 2nd.
I'm familiar with the charge. I'm not familiar with the case.
Okay.
I haven't looked at
Your
it.
role was specific to
Just the welfare check.
just the welfare check.
Mhm.
Okay. And so I guess I'll ask you this. Let's assume that's true. Nobody approached you to say they heard gunshots the night before.
No, sir.
Nobody was standing around outside their apartment, waving their arms up and down, trying to report having seen, witnessed, or heard a crime from the night before.
No, sir.
How long were you out there about at the apartment?
I'd say approximately 20 to 30 minutes.
Okay. All right. Did you think it was adequate time? Did you see anyone else, any other neighbors out there while you were there? Do you recall?
Yeah, when police officers are in a neighborhood, a lot of people come out just to be nosy, but I did see a lot of neighbors. No one approached me to say anything.
To report anything unusual?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Were you right?
No, sir, Your Honor.
All right, you may step in.
Please raise your right hand and place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give to court in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Get you to state your name and spell your last name for the court.
Jeffrey Helfenstein, Helfinstine.
Mr. Helfenstein, do you work currently?
No, ma'am, I'm retired.
Where did you retire from?
Horry County Police Department.
How long were you with the Horry County Police Department?
14, almost 15 years.
And prior to joining the Horry County Police Department, did you have any other experience in law enforcement?
Yes.
What was that?
I worked with the city of Myrtle Beach for approximately 8.5 years.
What about military experience?
I did an Air Force career. I was an 18-year veteran.
18 years. What was the last position you held at the Horry County Police Department?
I was the desk officer at the Central Precinct at M.L. Brown Building in Conway.
What were some of your duties and responsibilities as a desk officer at the M.L. Brown Building?
Answered phone calls, took reports from citizens that walked in with problems that they needed a police report taken care of, and just general administrative type duties.
And when you say the M.L. Brown Building, what is that building?
I'm sorry?
What is the M.L. Brown Building?
M.L. Brown Building is the Central Precinct. It's the main precinct in the headquarters building for the county police.
Thank you. Were you working back on October 5th, 2020?
I was.
Did you come in contact with a woman named Meagan Jackson that day?
I did.
How did that come about?
She came in to report a missing person.
Who did she report missing?
A gentleman by the name of Gregory Rice. She identified him as the father of her children.
Did she tell you when she last saw Gregory Rice?
I believe she spoke to him, if I'm not mistaken, by phone approximately 2 days before she came in, maybe 3.
And I may have asked you that. This was October 5th, 2020. Is that the date?
October 5th was when she came in, and I believe she said it was October 2nd at night when she spoke to him last on the phone.
Okay. What was Meagan Jackson's demeanor like when she reported Gregory Rice missing that day?
Quite frankly, pretty unremarkable.
He can't possibly know what she's feeling.
She just said what was the demeanor. He can testify as to what he personally observed.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You answer that.
She, demeanor-wise, it was pretty unremarkable. There was no major emotions, enough that I would have listed it in the report had there been something to list.
Okay. What did you do as a result of your meeting with Meagan Jackson that day?
I wrote the report, entered it NCIC as a missing person, not in danger.
What do you mean by NCIC? What is that?
NCIC is the National Crime Information Center, where stolen cars, missing persons, and so forth get entered once they're reported to the police. And that way, if the person's found, say in Los Angeles, they'll notify us that they found them and they're okay.
And does that conclude your involvement in this case?
That concludes my involvement, yes ma'am.
No further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer, you said you're retired. Thank you for your service, of course. You said she came in, had no real noticeable emotion. Is that correct?
Nothing that was worth annotating.
Knocking down, like shock maybe, kind of, nothing annotating. So no emotion relays, are we trying to say that no emotion relays something?
What I'm saying is there was nothing displayed to me that I felt worthy of putting in the report.
Okay. So there's nothing remarkable then?
Exactly.
You just, a person came in and filed a missing person report, just like they're supposed to do if a person goes missing.
Exactly.
Did you see Meagan Jackson shoot Greg Rice?
No.
Did you see Chris Donatelli shoot Greg Rice?
No.
No further questions.
Redirect.
No, sir, Your Honor. We ask that this witness be released from his subpoena.
Any objection? Mr. All right, you may step down. You're free to go.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Please raise your right hand and place your left hand on the Bible. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give the court in this case to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Could you just state your name and spell your last name for the court?
Paul Johnson, Johnsson.
And Corporal Bunson, I'm just going to ask you to turn your report over. If you need to look at it to refresh your recollection, we'll cross
you.
that bridge. Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury where you work?
Horry County Police Department,
And how long have you worked there?
a little over 18 years.
What is your current position with the Horry County Police?
I'm a detective with the Horry County Police Department assigned to the property division of CID.
So what are some of your duties and responsibilities in that position?
In this position, we investigate property crimes such as burglaries, larcenies, bank fraud, check fraud, forgeries, stuff of that nature.
How long have you had that position?
Just a few weeks.
Okay. What were you doing before that?
Before that, I have worked in CID before, investigating child crimes, sexual assaults, and also been a supervisor of environmental services in the past.
So let's talk about October of 2020. Which of your many positions were you in at that point?
I was assigned to Investigations Division, Special Victims Unit.
Is that what you were describing about crimes against children or sexual assaults, et cetera?
Yes, ma'am.
Would missing persons also fall under special victims?
Yes, ma'am.
So what were some of your duties and responsibilities in that position?
Missing persons, child assaults, some cold cases, mainly sexual assaults.
But what would you actually do?
In missing person cases, they would assign a case. You would make sure the patrol entered the person NCIC. Then you would go from there.
Sort of generally speaking, as a detective, would your daily tasks include, say, interviewing people, search warrants, things of that sort?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In October of 2020, did you become familiar with a missing persons case where the victim was Gregory Rice?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Do you know, were you assigned as the original lead investigator?
No, ma'am, I was not. I was Assistant Detective Susie.
Detective Susie?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, is there, you said you follow some sort of procedure, you make sure patrol has entered the person in NCIC. What other types of things would you normally do for a missing person?
In the beginning stages, you would also send out a department email in reference to the missing person with a photo. You would also contact the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. They would do a poster on their Fusion Division, sent out statewide as a missing person.
I'm going to show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 4. Is that the flyer that was prepared and sent out?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Your Honor, I would ask to publish this to the jury.
All right.
As part of this initial protocol, would you try to get the missing person's cell phone records or bank records or anything like that? How would you attempt to locate them?
Well, we would go out to their residence, make sure they are not home. If we still can't find them, we talk to family. And if we can't get a hold of any family, sometimes we'll do a search warrant at their residence and try to locate any cell phones, any kind of bank information to track them, stuff like that.
In this case, were you able to speak with the defendant, Meagan Jackson?
We were.
And what, if anything, did she tell you at that point?
Myself and Detective Susie interviewed Meagan at the police department. She stated she had dinner on Friday evening with the coroner. She then stated on Saturday that she went to the house. The victim was not there. She stated that she got a call for work and had to leave. She came back to the house. He still wasn't there, and that's where she contacted Horry County Police for a welfare check.
Based on that initial conversation with the defendant, did you and Detective Susie or other investigators get a search warrant for the victim's apartment?
We did.
Did you also get a search warrant for the phone records? And then I'll go back to the apartment.
I believe we did.
Okay. So let's start with the search warrant for the victim's apartment. Why would that be an investigative step that you would take?
Because we couldn't locate them. Sometimes inside people's residence, they keep bank records, debit cards, phone records, see what's in their vehicle, who they might have left with, phone records, just to try to figure out their last step before they went missing.
Did you, in fact, search the victim's apartment on October 5th, the same day you spoke with the defendant?
We did.
Did anyone assist you with that search?
Detective Susie and Sergeant Jim Chatfield.
At that point, did you have crime scene with you?
We did not.
And why not?
At that point, there was no reason to have crime scene. There was nothing out of the ordinary while we were searching that we would need crime scene for.
How did you get into the apartment?
Maintenance. The maintenance gentleman helped us in.
Can you give us just a very general description of the apartment?
It's a basic apartment complex. I mean, nothing. I do front porch, you know.
So it was a first floor unit?
Yes, ma'am.
How many
I believe so.
bedrooms?
I think there was 2. Not 100% sure. I believe there was 2.
Was there anything, did anything stand out to you during that search?
Nothing out of ordinary. A common apartment where someone would live.
Did you see any evidence of illegal drug use?
I did not.
And what types of things would you expect to see if someone was an illegal drug user?
Empty plastic baggies, empty pill bottles, spoons, lighters, stuff like that. We didn't witness any of that.
Okay. Did you, in fact, seize anything from the victim's apartment?
We did. We located the victim's wallet in his bedroom, on his dresser, as well as a folder containing bank information, and we located his keys. They were in between the cushions of a chair on the front porch.
So his keys were in between the cushions on an outside chair?
Yes, ma'am.
And now I'm approach first with exhibits 1 and 2. Do you recognize those items?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, start with exhibit 1. What is exhibit 1?
Dark brown wallet.
And what's exhibit 2?
South Carolina driver's license belonging to Greg Rice.
And was this driver's license in the wallet when you originally found it?
I believe so.
Is that how you, and just make sure you're talking into the microphone, is that how you were able to identify this as the victim's wallet?
Yes, ma'am.
And then showing you exhibit 3, what do you recognize that to be?
Car keys and miscellaneous keys, keychains.
And is this the set of keys that you found stuffed between the cushions on that outside chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you find that usual or unusual that the keys were in a cushion, stuffed between the cushions in the outside chair?
The unusual?
I can't ask you a leading question, so I'm saying, was it usual or unusual?
I don't keep my keys there, but I mean, if someone was sitting there, they could have fell out of a pocket, I guess.
Did you locate the victim's car?
We did.
Was there anything suspicious about the car?
No, ma'am.
Did you, sorry, I haven't even asked the question yet, so Did you speak with the defendant again that day?
We,
Go ahead.
Or did you speak with the victim that day? Excuse me, sorry about that. With the defendant that day, you obviously didn't speak with the victim.
yes, ma'am, we did at the M.R. Brown Police Department.
Were you familiar with the defendant prior to this interview?
I knew where she worked. I'm not sure if I'd ever had any dealings with her or not.
She was familiar to you?
Her job was familiar. I don't know if I'd ever actually been on a scene with her, but I knew where she worked.
Okay. At that point in the investigation, was the defendant a suspect?
She was not.
You mentioned when you first spoke with her, she said she had dinner. Who did you say she had dinner with?
Initially, she told us in the interview that she had dinner with the coroner.
What did you think about that?
I thought it was odd that she didn't say the name.
Can you describe her demeanor during your interview?
Pretty calm, in my opinion. Not too nervous. Not nervous as other people have been during interviews like that.
Your Honor,
not
I
worried.
mean, I understand that he is speaking to demeanor, but what is calm to me is very different than calm to him.
Overruled.
I'm sorry, so her demeanor seemed more calm than other people in a similar situation?
Just not worried would be my opinion.
Court's indulged. Nothing further at this time. We could just answer any questions from Mr. Preston.
All right, cross-examination.
Yes, sir. Remind me what day you were out there?
October 2nd, I believe. October 5th. Remember the exact date.
October 2nd or 5th.
You mind if I look at my notes?
You brought some notes with you? Yeah, go ahead, take a look at it.
I believe it was October 5th.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. How long were you out there?
Out at the police department or the
Out in the apartments.
apartments? No idea really. I mean,
Okay.
30 minutes, maybe an hour total. I'm not sure. It's been so long ago.
Okay. You don't remember that part? Okay. You don't remember how long you were walking around his apartment? You went inside, located items. Is that right?
Did we locate some items? Yes, sir, we did.
And you located an item. You did enough of a search to locate an item on the front porch, right?
We did.
Now, during your search around out there, 3 days after this alleged murder, did we see any bloodstains out there near the apartment?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking you, yes, sir.
You asking me if I saw any blood stains the day I was there?
Yes, sir. The day you were there on October 5th, 3 days after this death.
I did not see any blood stains when I was there, no, sir.
Okay. And you're an officer, detective. You saw those. That's something you'd make a note of, right?
If I saw blood stains?
Yes, sir.
I didn't see any blood stains.
Okay, listen. While you were there, did any neighbor run up to you and tell you about the gunshots they heard 3 nights ago?
I don't recall anybody telling me about gunshots.
Okay. All right. While y'all were searching around, did you come across any bullet casings, shell casings?
I did not find any shell casings, no, sir.
Okay. All right. Did you know Mr. Chris Dontel?
Did I know Chris Dontel?
Did you know Chris Dontel?
I knew Chris where he worked, yes, sir. Not a lot of dealings with him, but I knew where he worked.
Okay. And where did he work?
The coroner's office, Horry County Coroner's office.
Okay. Chief, mind just beg your indulgence for 1 second. Anything you want to ask? Those are all the questions I have. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor, very briefly. When you went out to Flint Lake Apartments, did you confine your search to the victim's apartment and car, or did you walk the whole complex?
Car in his apartment.
Nothing further.
All right, you may step down.
You solemnly swear or affirm that evidence you're about to give the court in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Keith, can you state your name and spell your name for the court reporter, please?
E-A-I-T-H.Y-A-H-N.
And where do you work?
I work for NDI Recognition Systems in Winter Springs, Florida.
What did your company do?
We develop, produce, and sell license plate recognition to law enforcement and homeland security.
How long have you worked at NDI Recognition Systems?
22 years.
And what is your current position?
Chief Operating Officer.
Turn it down just a smidge. And what are some of your duties and responsibilities?
Responsible for the general day-to-day operations of the business, from sales to support to production, installations, all of our operationals throughout the country.
Okay. Can you explain to the jury what a license plate reader does?
Sure. A license plate reader is a system devised of a camera connected to a computer that typically sits on the side of the road. The camera takes pictures of every vehicle that passes by and digitizes that picture and sends it to the computer that's attached. The computer then looks for the license plate in the picture, and it actually reads the text on the license plate and then sends that immediately via cellular modem to a server based at the state in the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. That all takes place sub-second, so it's almost instantaneous. And then it stores that data in the server, where it can be used for either historical analysis or to match immediately against hot lists that are also stored in the server.
What do you mean by hot list?
A hot list is a list that's typically created by the FBI, the state, or a local law enforcement agency, and it's a list of license plate numbers and why they may be wanted for some purpose, whether that be a stolen vehicle, a stolen license plate, expired insurance, wanted person, something like that.
How long have license plate readers been in use?
They were actually developed in the mid-90s and have been in use ever since.
Do you have knowledge of license plate readers in Horry County?
I do, yes.
And specifically, do Myrtle Beach and the city of Conway use LPR systems provided by your company?
Yes, both do.
Can you explain how an LPR system obtains the date and time? Well, let me back up. If a still is created from the LPR system, does that contain a date and time and location even?
It does, I'm sorry. When that data is sent from the roadside computer to the server, it does include a color overview picture of the vehicle, a zoomed in black and white picture of just the license plate, along with the location, the camera name, the date, the time, and the GPS coordinates.
How does the LPR system get the date and time that it uses on those stills?
The date and time from those stills comes from the computer that's on the roadside, which is a Windows-based processor. So it uses Windows time synchronization, which means every 9 hours, every 9.1 hours actually, that system will go out through the internet to a time server, which is pool.ntp.org, which is run by Microsoft, and it will synchronize the time. So the time is synchronized through the web every 9.1 hours.
Did you get the first part of that website, or do you need that? Yeah. Can you just spell out that first part of the website that you just said that it goes to?
Sure. It's not an actual website you go to and visit. It's just for time synchronization. But the name of it is pool, P-O-O-L, .ntp, as in network time protocol, .org.
Thank you very much. Have you been working with license plate readers since their inception, basically?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Based on your experience with the system, are the date and time included on LPR stills or reads accurate?
They are. They're such an important and integral part of the system that it's really important that we maintain accuracy there, which is why it's updated and synchronized every 9.1 hours.
Thank you. I have no further questions. Who's questioning?
Meagan, Coach Sandola, just one comment, Steve, co-counsel.
In a moment, I'm going to have you answer questions from one of the Britons on the cross-examination.
Okay.
you today?
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Let me ask you about, do you know how many, as you see here today, how many LPR cameras there are in Horry County?
Horry County, I believe there's right about 40 that are operated by our company, and then they have some operated by some competitors as well.
Okay. And how about any in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina? How many do you have in Myrtle Beach area?
Myrtle Beach, I believe, has 28.
And how many do you have in the Sockasty area?
I'm unfamiliar with that area, I'm sorry.
Okay. How about with Conway area?
In Conway, I believe there's right about 10.
Okay. All right. How about an Aner? Do you happen to know about Aner?
Objection relevance?
Cross-examination.
Do you happen to know how many there are in Aner, sir?
I don't know anything about Aner.
Okay. Were you asked to look at any specific areas, or did you do a general search for this license plate?
I don't do any searches for license plates.
Okay. So what was your involvement in this case?
We developed and sold the system to the law enforcement agencies, and the systems are operated with those within those jurisdictions.
Okay. So if there was a need to pull those LPRs in areas other than the ones that are in this case, would they have come to you to help pull those?
No, sir. They would have. Those are all contained in the server at SLED,
Okay.
so they would have gone to SLED.
Okay. And so if we wanted to know and see where these vehicles were at other times, you're not the guy for that?
No, I'm not.
Okay. But based on what you've told us, there are many cameras throughout both the city and the county. Is that correct?
There are.
Do you have any information at all about the facts in this case?
No, I don't. I have no idea about this case at all.
Okay. Big reports and doings.
All right.
No further questions?
All right, ready, ready?
No, Your Honor, but I would ask
Thank you, sir.
that Mr. Yan be allowed to return to work.
All right, any objection?
No, sir.
All right, pretty good. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Keith.
Report in this case with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
So help me God, I did.
Thank you. Get you to state your name and then spell your last name for the court.
Sergeant Jonathan Kelly, last name is spelled Kelly.
Sergeant Kelly, where do you work?
Horry County Police Department,
How long have you worked there?
a little over 15 years.
What's your current position at Horry County PD?
Currently, I work for the Office of Professional Standards. Most people might refer to it as Internal Affairs.
How long have you worked in internal affairs?
7 months.
What are some of your duties and responsibilities as a sergeant in internal affairs?
Mostly, we conduct investigations related to policy violations. Additionally, we might respond to subpoenas and FOIA requests, things like that.
Okay. What was your assignment back in October 2020?
I was assigned as a detective to the Homicide Division.
What were your duties as a detective assigned to the homicide division?
To investigate death investigations or violent assaults, robbery, and anything else, any other types of crimes that I was asked to do. Also assist other officers in whatever crimes they were investigating.
Were you asked to assist in the investigation into the murder of Gregory Rice on October 2nd, 2020?
I was.
How did you become involved?
On, I believe it was October 13th, I was asked to go to Abuelos near Coastal Grand Mall in the Myrtle Beach section of Horry County. And I was asked to obtain surveillance to see if there was, if the defendant and co-defendant were on surveillance.
Okay. And were you able to get surveillance footage from Abuelos?
I was. We got footage from roughly 6 p.m. to 11 p.m.
And could you see the defendant on that footage?
I did.
Did you verify when you were out there that the date and time on the footage was correct?
Not the first day. So when we obtained surveillance on the 13th, we obtained, like I said, from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. And I then took that footage back to the office and reviewed it. I remembered after reviewing it that we hadn't verified the timestamp with current time. So the next day on the 14th, I went back to the location, verified that the timestamp was 35 minutes fast. So you'd have to subtract 35 minutes from the timestamp on the video to get real time. I also noticed during that time that we missed an angle the first time. When we were downloading the footage, we were trying to just get footage where patrons would be. So we didn't download the portions related to like back of house, like the chef's cook's area.
Okay.
So I observed a different angle as I was verifying the timestamp. So I also got additional footage that day as well on the 14th.
You said you verified the date and time. How did you do that?
I looked at what it was displayed on the live feed, and then I looked at my cell phone and just compared the two.
So you found out, I believe you said it was 35 minutes ahead?
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit. May I approach, Coroner?
Yes, ma'am.
So State's Exhibit 14, it's already been admitted into evidence. Did you get a copy of the video from Abuelos that day?
Yes.
Did you provide a copy of that to the solicitor's office?
Yes.
Have you reviewed that flash drive?
I have.
And is that a copy, a true accurate copy of what you provided?
It is.
Okay?
And I can tell that because it has my signature on it.
You signed it. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 14A and 14C. Let's start with 14A. Have you reviewed that disc? You can take it out.
I don't see my signature on this one.
Have you
specifically.
reviewed?
But it does say clips from Abuelo's video, which is the footage that I collected.
So have you reviewed clips from Abuelo's footage?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you 14C. Same question. Is that also a disc with clips? Is clips from 14?
Yes. Again, I don't see specifically my signature on this one, but it is also, the disc states that it's clips from Abuelo's, which would be the footage that I obtained.
Okay. And have you reviewed clips from Abuelo's?
Yes.
And are those clips fair and accurate representations of what's contained on Exhibit 14?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would admit 14A and 14C in evidence and publish to the jury.
Yes, sir, Your Honor. That we just heard from the witness that he's not able to establish the proper chain of custody for it. There's no signature on those documents, on those discs to identify that he's the person that handled them. Don't have any way to know whether or not they've been tampered or if those are in fact the ones that were procured for that day.
Your Honor, do you want me to respond?
Well, no, he says he's just basing it upon what's written on there.
Well, he said that he's reviewed the clips. The clips
But earlier on, he said
well,
he didn't know what it was, but he was reading as to what it is.
Your Honor, he's reviewed the clips. The solicitor's office just burns them to a disc from our system.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
But we'll use Exhibit 14.
Well, Exhibit 14 is voluminous.
Well, and I understand that,
We can.
but he did not properly authenticate 14A and 14C.
Your Honor, if it's okay with the court, we'll move on to a different witness. We'll have him review those, just so we don't have the jury sitting there watching a voluminous amount of material.
That'll be fine.
Thank you.
So, for right now, I'm sustaining the defendant's objections to 14A and 14C as they have not been properly authenticated.
Okay, we'll have him review them, Your Honor, and get back to it.
All right.
So I can step down?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Wait a minute, wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, we were trying to pause this witness and recall him in a few minutes. Well, I guess we'll have to play the video then, I'm sorry. What we'll do is try to, Your Honor, would you listen to this?
Direct examination.
Thank you. Okay, let's try this again.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you just step off the stand and watch State's Exhibit 14A?
I did.
Is that a copy of clips from the video surveillance you obtained from Abuelos?
Yes.
Is that a fair and accurate copy of the actual footage you obtained?
Yes.
Your Honor, the State seeks to admit 14A in evidence and publish to the jury.
Any objection?
Not to be difficult, Your Honor, but we still haven't established a chain of custody with this particular disc, Your Honor.
Your Honor, the chain of custody is not required for this disc.
Let me make the ruling.
Okay.
Okay, you don't need to continue arguing, you tendered it into evidence, they've raised their objection, now I've got to rule on their objection, all right? All right, State's Exhibit 14A is admitted into evidence over defendant's objection.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I'm going to show you 14C. Have you also reviewed 14C?
I have.
And is that a true and accurate copy of the video footage you actually obtained that day?
It is.
Your Honor, the State seeks to introduce 14C in evidence and publish it to the jury.
Any objection?
Mr. Your Honor.
All right, State's Exhibit 14C admitted into evidence without objection.
All right. Detective, I'm sorry, Sergeant Kelly.
Yes, ma'am.
We just watched State's Exhibit 14C. Could you identify anyone that you could see on that video?
Yes.
And who was that?
Chris Dontel and Meagan Jackson were exiting the location. And again,
And were you familiar with Chris Dontel and Meagan Jackson prior to obtaining this video?
yes.
How did you know who they were?
Chris Dontel was a deputy coroner, so he had been on several death investigations that I had been on, so just working relationship, had known him. And same with Meagan Jackson. She was a transport driver for the coroner's office, so, or for a contracted company, I guess. But I
did
knew
you
her.
recognize them by sight?
Yes.
You know what they look like?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I think I played them out of order. Let's play 14A. So that one, I believe you just said was them leaving.
Correct.
Can you tell me, if you can still see it, the date and time stamp on there?
That says October 2nd, 2020 at 1957, which is military time is actually 7:57. But again, that's 35 minutes fast. So it should be maybe 7:22, if I'm subtracting that right.
Exactly. Athlete must run to. Okay, let's see. Let's play 14A. Okay, we just watched 14A. Can you tell me what you viewed on that video?
That was Chris and Meagan arriving at Abuelos about 50 minutes earlier than the previous video.
Okay. So they're out of order, but one is arriving, one's leaving.
Correct.
And what's the date on both of those?
October 2nd, 2020.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to approach with what's been marked as State's Exhibit 14B. Can you tell me what this is?
This is one of the other angles. This is a screenshot of Chris and Megan sitting at the bar at Abuelo's on the same date, and the timestamp on that is 7:09.
Okay. And is that a still from the video, State's Exhibit 14?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, State seeks to introduce 14B in evidence.
Any objection?
That's right, Your Honor.
State's Exhibit 14B admitted into evidence without objection.
Oh, Your Honor, we publish this to the jury.
All right.
Okay. Sergeant Kelly, there's a red circle on here. Who do you see sitting at the bar?
That's Chris and Megan.
And again, what time was that?
The timestamp on there is 1909, which would be 7:09. And again, you have to subtract 35 minutes to get the right time, I believe.
I'm going to approach and show you what's been marked as State Exhibit 15, 16, and 17. And are these also stills from the video we literally just watched?
Yes, the time on this, or the number 17 is Chris and Megan leaving. Number 16 is Chris and Megan arriving, as is number 15. Those are just a few seconds apart.
And are those fair and accurate representations of video stills from State's Exhibit 14?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, State would seek to admit 15, 16, and 17 into evidence and publish to the jury.
Any objection?
That's right, Your Honor.
All right, State's Exhibits 15, 16, and 17 admitted into evidence without objection.
So I believe you just kind of told us what they show, but just for the purpose of, can you flip it? Okay, just now that the jury can actually see the picture, I know we've seen the video, but just tell me what this Exhibit 15 shows.
This is Chris and Megan arriving, and as I'm looking at this, I also realized the timestamp on the actual footage there is that was 7:41 on the timestamp, but the time that was showing on the video clip was covering that timestamp, so that's actually the accurate time.
Okay.
So the time that was showing on the videos that we watched was accurate timing. This is when I watched the video on the actual footage. That's the timestamp that's on there.
So there's the original time and a corrected time. Is that what
Yeah. So that timestamp at the bottom center of the photo is the timestamp that the footage shows from the surveillance system. That time that's noted on the right is the corrected time when you subtract the 35 minutes.
And I believe you testified that you verified that night that the correct time was the time in real life.
Yes.
Okay, let's have 16. Okay, so in this photo, who do you see in this photo?
That's Chris Dontel and Megan Jackson again.
And can you tell from this photo what Christopher Dontel is wearing?
Yes.
And what is that?
It's like a blue long sleeve shirt and some dark colored pants with brown shoes.
And what's the date and time stamp on this one?
This is October 2nd, 2020.
Okay, let's have Exhibit 17, please. Okay, and once again, what do you see in this video?
Again, this is when Chris Dontel and Megan Jackson are leaving Abuelo's.
What's the date and time stamp on this one?
That is October 2nd, 2020.
What's the accurate time?
The accurate time is 7:57 p.m.
Okay. Did you, after going to Abuelo's and locating this surveillance footage, did you try to check any other businesses in the area to see if any additional surveillance footage could be located?
I did. I checked.
Go ahead.
I checked Coastal Grand Mall and some of the other businesses on the exterior of Coastal Grand Mall and the exterior perimeter road around Coastal Grand Mall, and I didn't find anything of interest.
Okay. You said you found nothing else.
Yeah, nothing of interest.
Did you and another detective check for video at or near the Lowe's Food Plaza on International Drive?
Yes.
Why were you asked to do that?
There was information that Greg Rice's phone tracked to that area. One of its last pings was in that area, so we were just checking businesses around that area for surveillance footage.
Okay. And what date were you looking for?
I believe October 2nd and into October 3rd, I believe.
Why was that date important?
That was the last day that his phone pinged, and that was I believe, the last time that it was reported that he was seen.
Okay. Were you able to locate any surveillance footage from that shopping center?
Yes.
Where were you able to get it from?
Howell's Computer Repair.
Okay. Where's that located?
I don't know the exact address, but if you're looking at Lowe's front door from the parking lot, it's to the left, but in the same structure, like the same plaza building.
Okay. Have you reviewed that video?
I have.
And does that video have a date and time stamp?
It does.
Okay. We've learned from our stipulation that that time stamp's 10 minutes fast. I'm going to approach with what's already been admitted into evidence as states Exhibit 21.
Yes.
Just to see. Is this a copy? Did you give a copy of the surveillance to the solicitor?
The copy was, I'm not sure how necessarily it was delivered, but again, my signature is not on this particular.
This one's already been admitted into evidence.
Okay.
The copy that we make copies of what you provide.
Okay, yes, so, yes, it was submitted to evidence.com and evidence the way that we would normally submit it, correct?
Okay. So when you say you submitted to evidence.com, is that uploading it to a computer software system?
Yes.
So you're not, I'm just clarifying, you're not actually delivering flash drives to the solicitor's office?
Correct.
All right. Did you also, I'm going to approach with what's been marked as State Exhibit 22. Yeah. Okay. May I approach, Sean?
Yes.
All right, so this one, I believe has your initials, so let's look and see.
Yes.
Okay, so have you reviewed that disc and verified what it is?
Yes.
And what is that disc?
This is clips from the footage obtained from Howell's surveillance camera.
Okay, and is this a fair and accurate representation of the clips that you obtained?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state seeks to introduce Exhibit 22 in evidence and publish in jury.
Any objection?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
State Exhibit 22 admitted in evidence without objection.
Okay, so, play 22A. So pause for 1 second, just for clarification. Sergeant Kelly,
Yes, ma'am.
when you obtained this video footage, did you obtain footage other than just the defendant? That's inartfully worded. What I'm asking is, when you obtained it, did you obtain a specific time period and not just footage of the defendant coming and going?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So are what we're looking at here clips of the portions of the footage that relate to the defendant, Meagan Jackson?
Correct.
Okay. So let's play this one. Okay, so first of all, just pause it one second. What's the date and time on this video?
October 2nd, 2020.
And what's the, can you read the timestamp?
The time says 23:17, and if I remember right, I believe that's 10 minutes fast, so it should actually really be, in layman's terms, it would be 11:07 p.m.
Okay, and as we watch the video, can you tell us what you see in the video?
As we watch it,
Yep,
Okay.
as it happens, try to narrate.
All right.
We can pause it when we need to.
so there's a silver Ford Explorer, which I know is what Chris Dontel drives as a county vehicle, and the van that pulled in is also what I know Meagan Jackson drives for transport.
Okay.
Here we see Dontel getting out of the vehicle, and we'll see in a second his clothing is the same that he was wearing at Abuelo's.
Does he have anything in his hand?
He has a
May I have an objection, if I could state, please? All right. I don't believe it's appropriate for the witness to narrate the evidence. This is the evidence that they're presenting to the jury. The jury's able to see it. Doesn't need to be a narrator for it, and I don't think that's appropriate testimony on.
Would you like me to respond?
Please.
Your Honor, the witness is narrating the video because he's a police detective, and as part of his investigation, he reviewed this video and located the defendants and their cars and the defendants themselves on the video. This is a way the state frequently presents evidence. It's nothing out of the ordinary. I don't see anything wrong with the defendant stating what he sees on the video. He can either do it while it's playing, or I can have him do it when it's not playing.
Well, I don't think just because it's been done in the past makes it something you just can do today, Your Honor.
All right, I'm going to allow the testimony, but ladies and gentlemen, it's up to you to decide factually what the video shows. If you find that the witness's account does not coincide with what you view, then you're to disregard his testimony. I'll allow him to testify as to what he says the video shows, but ultimately it's going to be your decision to decide what the video shows. All right?
Thank you, Your Honor.
You can continue to narrate what you see.
so he's carrying a bag.
Okay?
At this point, he appears to open the rear hatch to the van and puts the bag in the rear area of the van. It's now roughly real-time 11:10. Chris Dontel opens and closes the rear hatch of the Explorer. And just a few seconds later, still roughly 11:10 p.m., the van drives out of the parking lot.
And you may have already said this, but did you recognize that van?
Yeah, that's what I know Meagan Jackson to drive.
In what capacity did she drive that van?
Transport van for transporting dissidents or decedents.
Let's play the second clip. Pull it up. Okay, pause for 1 second. Okay, what's the date and time on this video?
This one is October 3rd, 2020, and the timestamp shows 12:25 a.m., just after midnight, but the actual time is 12:15 a.m.
Okay, now we can play this one. And what do you see parked there in the parking lot?
The Explorer is still there, and now a van is pulling up. It's the same make, model, appearing to be the same transport van that Meagan Jackson is known to drive. There I see, again, same outfit, Chris Dontel exiting the driver's seat, going into the rear hatch of the van, pulls out what appears to be the same bag from earlier. It was hard to see there, but in between the two vehicles, you could see a person walk from the passenger side of the van in between the vehicles, and the clothing was dark. So I assume Meagan Jackson. It's consistent with the clothing she was seen in Abuelos. Chris Dontel loads the bag back into the Ford Explorer and gets into the driver's seat. Now, real time, it is roughly 12:17 a.m. and the Explorer is driving off. And now the van is left behind.
All right, let's move on to the next group. Okay, pause it for 1 second. Okay, what's the date and time here?
This is October 3rd, 2020. Timestamp says 1:27 a.m. Real time would be 1:17 a.m.
Okay, you can press stop. And what do you see parked in the parking lot there?
Meagan Jackson's van is still parked there. There's a silver Ford Explorer arriving, which is consistent with Chris Dontel's county vehicle. Again, we see coming from the passenger side, a person appearing to wear all dark clothing. That's consistent with what I saw in the Abuelos video that Meagan Jackson was wearing. She appears to get into the passenger side of the van. Chris Dontel grabs the bag out of the Explorer again, walks to the van, pops the rear hatch, places the bag in the van, closes the rear hatch. Then he gets into the driver's seat of the van at timestamp 1:29, but again, 10 minutes fast. That would real time would be 1:19, and then the van drives off, leaving the Explorer behind again this time.
Okay. All right, final video. Final clip. All right, so what's the date and time here?
This is October 3rd, 2020. Timestamp says 8:25 a.m. It's actually 8:15 a.m.
Okay.
You can see the Explorer, Silver Explorer, is still parked in the same spot from the last video. Doesn't appear to have moved. And arriving is a minivan. Again, consistent with Meagan Jackson's van. It's a little difficult to see, but in between the palm fronds there, you can see, again, clothing matching what Chris Dontel was wearing in the Buelos footage. He goes into the rear hatch of the van, grabs a bag that appears to be the same bag that he's moved back and forth. Timestamp now says 8:28 a.m., which is actually 8:18. You can see the Ford Explorer that Chris Dontel drives is leaving, and then also the van is leaving behind it. And they both leave the parking lot.
Just to be clear, are those merely clips of the entire surveillance video that you retrieved?
That's correct.
So if the jury wanted to watch, could they watch the entire?
They could.
And all those videos that we just saw, were the two vehicles that you pointed out, the Silver Explorer and the van, consistent throughout?
Yes.
And I believe, you said you recognize those?
Yes. They both appear to be consistent with what Chris Dontel or Meagan Jackson would use at work.
Let's move on to, did you respond to the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home?
Yes.
And where's that located?
I don't recall the address, but it's just south of Faro Parkway and Highway 17 bypass in the Myrtle Beach section of Horry County.
Okay. And were you able to determine whether Myrtle Beach Funeral Home had an alarm system?
Yes.
Were you able to determine if it was functioning at the time of this murder?
It was functional, but the owner had kept it disabled because he was getting too many false alarms. So he didn't want to pay the false alarm fines. So there was an active system, but it was not being utilized.
Okay. What about surveillance footage? Were you able to get any surveillance footage from the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home?
No. It did have surveillance system at one time, but the information that we obtained was that it had been rendered non-functional during another review for a different instance.
Okay. So were you able to obtain any surveillance footage from the Myrtle Beach funeral home?
No, it was not functional at that time.
Okay. What, if anything, did you learn about who has access to the Myrtle Beach funeral home?
We asked the funeral director and learned that
Defense has asked a number of witnesses if they had, a number of law enforcement witnesses, if there were any reports of shots fired the night Greg Rice was killed. In your experience, are there always calls when shots are fired in Horry County?
not always.
No further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination.
Course indulged.
All right.
Was that the extent of your involvement, sir?
In relation to the death investigation, yes. I believe I obtained a search warrant for maybe some GPS locations related to a possible bond violation,
Okay.
but I'd have to check my notes to remember the exact details.
Did you, as we see here today, do you have a general understanding of what's been alleged to have happened?
Yes.
You understand that there's an allegation that Ms. Jackson and Chris Dontel were having an affair?
Correct.
They were having an affair, right? And
Bless you.
bless you, Your Honor. And as part of that, some of what we've seen here in terms of Lowe's, you notice every time they left Lowe's and they were going towards Meagan Jackson's house, what vehicle were they in?
I don't know which direction they went when they left the parking lot.
Oh, you didn't have that, that was not part of your investigation? You don't know where they left and went to?
No, I don't.
Okay. Would it make sense to you that if they were going to take their vehicle, drive to Meagan Jackson's house, where Erica Dontel, the person who is in the dark, lives nearby, that they would take Meagan Jackson's vehicle so as not to reveal
Objection,
the
Your
affair?
Honor. Calls for speculation.
Okay.
That could make sense, yes.
Okay. And so all of the shuffling around of vehicles makes sense for people who are engaged in an affair that they are trying to hide. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
You'd also agree with me, wouldn't you, that Meagan Jackson appears to be wearing the same clothes at Roy Lowe's as she was at Lowe's?
Yes.
Would you agree with me that we don't have any audio from any of this footage?
That is correct.
Okay. So we don't know what they were discussing at Roy Lowe's.
Correct.
So any effort to determine what they were discussing based on the evidence you have presented would just be speculation, right?
Correct.
You likewise agree with me that people who are, again, having an affair still have to eat. Is that right?
Absolutely.
And so just being at a restaurant together in and of itself is not any kind of proof of any kind of negative or improper activity.
This is correct.
You probably also agree with me that in these times when there's no report of gunshots, that'd be a little less likely in an area where there are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 residents?
The more densely populated an area is, I would suggest the more likely somebody might call. Horry County's a rural county, though, and you are allowed to hunt in the rural counties, the rural areas of Horry County. You're allowed to shoot as long as you have proper backstop and things like that. So it's not uncommon to hear gunshots in Horry County.
How about at Arrowhead, sir? Flint Lake Apartments. How many people live out there?
It's densely populated there, but there are wooded areas, and there's the intracoastal waterway right there as well.
So we can agree that Flint Lake Apartments is densely populated with people who presumably can hear.
Yeah, correct.
And not only is Flint Lake Apartments in and of itself densely populated, the area driving in and out of there is densely populated with homes.
Correct. There's also woods in that area as well, but yes, it's Myrtle Beach, so it's more metropolitan than, say, Green Sea or Aner.
Okay. Horse and Indulgence?
All right.
No further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Briefly, Your Honor. I believe Mr. Britton asked you a question about the videos, and you see a lot of shuffling back and forth, and is that consistent with people having an affair? In your 15 years in law enforcement, is that shuffling around also consistent with people involved in a homicide?
It could be. It could be for any number of reasons. I don't know how to elaborate more. It could be for any number of reasons, but that could be also another possibility.
Okay.
All right.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
You may step down.
You can sit there. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give the court in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so be God? Thank you. Just right there, watch your step. Could you just state your name and then spell your last name for the court?
Donna Sue Soles, S-O-L-E-S.
Now, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in today, Ms. Souls. You don't have to give us your address, but do you live in Horry County in this general area?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you have family in the area?
My whole family.
Are you familiar with an area called Pitt's Landing?
All my life.
And I'm going to show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 51. And just a minute on that. Do you recognize that area?
Yes.
Is that the Pitt's Landing area?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I'd ask that this be published to the jury.
And what exhibit?
51, Your Honor.
All right.
Let me shrink it a little bit. So, and it's on the same on all three screens. So is this the area that we refer to as Pitt's Landing?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you can just stand up and point out on that map where Pitt's Landing is. So that little kind of bare area. Okay, thank you very much. Do you recall going to that area the night of November 7th of 2020 into November 8th?
I do.
And what was it about that date that makes it, what's the first thing about that date that makes it stick out in your mind?
My grandma passed away that day, and we went to the funeral. And, well, we always go catfishing down there, like, since we were kids. But we left the funeral that day and up on 378 and come back. And my little brother was with me, and asked if we want to ride down there and check it out. So we did. And then us not living far from there, we went to the house and got our boats and we went back down there. Just kind of clear heads for today.
And when you went there, were you going to set out catfish lines?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this is something that you taught me when the first time we met. So can you tell the jury, what do you do when you set catfish lines?
You set bush hooks. Like you kind of tie the lines to the tree and put whatever you're going to fish with on there. And then you go throughout the night and check them.
So are you actually in a boat on the river when you're doing this?
Yes.
Okay. So did something happen that night as you were setting catfish lines or checking catfish lines that brings you to court today?
Yeah, I came to the third one and the smell. Like when we went to go to set the line, I smelled the smell.
When you say you smell the smell,
It was an awful smell. Like you couldn't bear it. It was actually I threw up, vomited.
okay. And what did you do once you smelled that?
Well, we knew it had to come from somewhere, and you look around and really didn't see anything. Then it was getting dark then because it was earlier, and so I kind of shined a light, and I saw it looked like a tarp, but it was like on the wood line, and which is where I shined it. And so we went back to the hill and we didn't mess with that one. I went back to the hill and I told Ronald, and Ronald's my little brother, and I said, there's something about that that's not right. Like I know it's a smell I've never smelled in my life. And I've done a lot of fishing, a lot of hunting in my life, and it's any kind of animal I've ever smelled, it's nothing like it. It had no comparison. And so when we went back to check the lines, and got to the third one, I told him we needed to check and see, just see what exactly that was. And we got closer, and as we got closer, the flies and it was the smell. We were both throwing up. And so we went on to it, got kind of close up to it, and Kaylee, which was my little brother's girlfriend, she was in the boat with us, and it was her first time catfishing. And so before we went there, my friend Jamie was on his other boat, which was my best friend's husband now. So we got Jamie to come, and Kaylee got on the boat with her before we went back over there to check out and see what it was.
So let me just stop you there for just 1 second. And Your Honor, I neglected one exhibit that I believe will be admitted without objection. It states Exhibit 48.
Any objection?
I don't believe so. They might. Sorry, Your Honor. No objection.
All right, states Exhibit 48 admitted in evidence.
I'm showing you State's Exhibit 48. Is that what you first saw?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I would ask that State's Exhibit 48 be admitted, and it's admitted, that it be published to the jury.
All right.
So is that what
So you can see kind of from looking at it, it looks like a tarp, something of that matter, if you're on the boat out there and you were shining the light.
And then, Your Honor, I would ask that.
And the smell to go along with it, you kind of knew that's where it had to be coming from. So I told Jamie to come and let her on the boat. And then I was scared too, to be honest with you. And the water never scares me. But when I saw that and the smell, I knew it was something that couldn't have been right.
So did you guys get closer?
Yes.
Okay,
And
Your Honor, I
then
would ask that State's Exhibit 49, which has already been admitted, be published.
All right.
And is that a closer view
yes.
of the tarp? And I think before you said that you noticed quite a bit of insect activity. Did you guys eventually go even closer to that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. And what did you do once you got closer?
I have a yellow extendable paddle that I keep in the boat, and I opened it, and Ronald pulled me up like to it, and he was back there driving my little boat at the time. But I got up there, I took that paddle, and I kind of, because of course I wasn't gonna touch it with my hand, I didn't know, but the smell was so bad in between you getting sick and doing it, but it was so bad, like I couldn't take it on. The closer we got, the more sick I got, and then he got sick too. So he was like, I don't know if I can do this, and I was like, well, we got to figure out what it is. So we did leave, and we went back to the hill, and we had a fire, because you go throughout the night checking these hooks. And Ronald, I don't drink, but Ronald does drink, and he had a couple of shots of Fireball, and I was sitting on the tailgate of the truck, and he said, sis, what is it? And I said, Ronald, you're not gonna, you've been drinking, you're gonna think I'm crazy if I tell you this. And I was like, something's nagging.
She's just right on about hearsay.
Okay, it's this thing, can't get into what anybody else said. Sit here and be crossing.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I was explaining that. I was telling him, and that's why we went back. And I was like, something's nagging me and telling me something ain't right about it. Like, we need to go check it out.
So based on that, did you then get even closer?
Yes, and when we went back, I took the paddle and put to, if you're looking at it, the left side.
Okay, and Your Honor, if I published previously admitted State's Exhibit 50.
All right.
And so did you get that close?
Yes.
Okay. And you were talking about a yellow extendable paddle. What did you do?
I took the left-hand side of it and kind of went to pick it up, and the water, it was slippery, because it had, whatever it was had been there, and the paddle slipped, and then I put it back, and I tried to pick it up, but it was kind of heavy. So Ronald come up, and my little brother again, and he held me, and when we did it, it was around this part of the legs.
Okay, I'm sorry. And I just have to describe it for the record. Okay, she's pointing here, so kind of around the knees.
So yeah, like the bottom part is what it looked like, and but there was a ratchet strap around it, around the side. But when we pulled it up more, and then so I said, I didn't know what it really was, but it looked like it could have been, something. I thought a body, but then I went to the other side, and you couldn't see the round part in the water. But again, I couldn't pick it up by myself because it had been there, and I knew there was weight to it, and it was kind of scary. And so Ronald helped me once again, and we put the paddle and did it, and it was around the head. You could actually see the round part through the tarp.
Now you talked about seeing a ratchet strap.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever see anything attached to the ratchet?
Cinder blocks.
A cinder block?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In addition to kind of trying to lift up both ends, did you do anything else to determine what was inside the tarp? Did you have a knife with you?
Yes. When we saw the round part, Ronald said we need to call, and I said, yeah, we do, but you don't, if you call them and say you found a body or you didn't really know what it was, I was like, there's going to be so many people out here. And again, it kept bothering me. I was like, we got to, he's like, let's just make sure. So being that the head was on that side, or what we thought was the head by the circle part, I said, Ronald, you're going to cut towards the top. You could tell it was a cypress stump. We go fishing out there all the time. So whatever it was caught up on, it looked like part of that cypress stump. And he made the first slot, and you could, the paddle and the light from the one, I had a light on my head. It kind of looked like the jeans in the maybe muscle,
Did
So
you
it made me
guys-
think it had been there a while, but then you couldn't exactly know for sure that's what it was.
Did you cut another spot on
Yes, own up. I said, don't cut, like, we're not gonna cut like closer to the head, like, cause you don't wanna see that, like, that's enough to live with. And you could see like the shirt and like the rib cage.
Nothing further at this time. I believe Mr. Case Britton will be questioning you, so just please answer any questions he has.
I'm so sorry that you had to be the one that stumbled upon this. I'm actually sorry about your funeral earlier that afternoon. You said that you were out there early evening?
Yeah, well, catfishing, you set lines like an hour before dark. And, or you set the hooks, and then you go throughout and just check them, because you got to have them back up an hour before daylight.
Okay, so look, I'll be honest with you. I've got no idea about
Okay.
catfishing. Last thing I know about catfishing, you stick.
Well, I know you're trying to get the time. You're trying to get the timeline, you
Well, I'm
know,
trying to
like
figure
because
out-
it was later on that night.
Later on that evening.
But you go and you set them, and that's
I'm
what.
gonna ask
Only
that.
one can talk at a time. We've got a court reporter that has to
Oh,
take
okay.
everything down, all right? So ask your question and then allow her to answer.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Correct. I'm just trying to establish a roundabout timeline.
Right.
You said you were at a funeral.
Yeah, my grandma.
And I apologize about that. We just lost our grandfather a couple months ago. Daytime, 2:00 type funeral?
Yeah, it was earlier that day.
Earlier that day, okay. So y'all are going around and, did you say your son, your stepson?
No, my little brother.
Little brother, okay, I'm sorry. Just wanted to go clear his head, get out on the water.
Well, we always go catfishing down there,
Yeah,
and I mean it's like an every other weekend thing. And on the way back, we was like, let's go down there and check it out and see how the water is. And then we had buried grandma, so it was like that's perfect time. So we ran to the house. Like I said, we don't live far from there, so we hooked to the boats and went back.
Great place to get out, clear your head on the water. Do you have firsthand knowledge how that tarp got there?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Rex?
No, Your Honor, I would ask that Ms. Souls be released from her subpoena.
Any objection?
No, sir, Your Honor.
All right, you're free to go. Thank you very much.
Could you just state your name and then spell your last name for the court?
Heather Wilson, Wilson.
Sorry, I'm just trying to gather some of the exhibits, so I'm not walking back and forth quite as much. May I?
Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Captain Wilson. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Where do you work?
Horry County Police.
How long have you worked there?
For since 2005. Sorry, it's been so long I almost forgot.
Do you have any prior law enforcement or military experience before joining Horry County Police Department?
Yes, I worked for Myrtle Beach for about 9 months, and prior to that I worked in Danville, Virginia as a police officer in Danville City Police Department.
What is your current assignment?
Currently, I am a captain, and I am assigned to the 2nd Precinct, which is also referred to as the South Precinct, and that is in the Socastee Burgess area of the county.
What was your assignment before that?
So before I was promoted to captain, I was the supervisor in the crime scene division.
Did you hold that position both as a lieutenant, since you were just promoted to captain?
Yeah, so it would probably be easier if I spent almost 10 years in crime scene as a detective, and then went to homicide division and worked as a detective, was promoted to sergeant, worked on patrol, and then came back to the crime scene division as a sergeant. And then ultimately I was promoted to a lieutenant in the a lieutenant in the crime scene section, where I stayed until I was promoted to captain.
Thank you. That was much better worded than my question. So both as the sergeant and the lieutenant in crime scene, what types of responsibilities did you have?
So ultimately, the responsibilities were the same. As far as overseeing the crime scene division, I would also go and help or assist with scenes. I would take on my own scenes. I would help with training the new crime scene investigators that would come in, reviewing reports, fingerprints, processing of evidence, ordering, and then just normal business type things that you would think in any job.
If I'm doing my math in your timeline correctly, you were working in the crime scene unit in October, November of 2020?
Yes.
Okay. As part of your rotation in the crime scene unit, did you become involved in sort of globally the missing persons that turned into a homicide of Gregory Rice?
I did.
Directing your attention specifically to November 8th of 2020, did you respond to a call for service regarding human remains that had been found in the Little PD River?
Yes, I did.
Did any other crime scene investigators go with you?
Yes, at that time we had another crime scene investigator that I was training. He was brand new, and he responded as well.
Great. Were you familiar with that location prior to responding this night?
Yes.
So if we could, Your Honor, 51 has already been admitted and published. I'd just like to show that again. Is that the area to which you responded?
Yes, it is.
When you first got there, can you just describe what you saw? Were there other people there? What was sort of going on?
There were other people there. Marion County Sheriff's Office was there, and ultimately, I wasn't sure exactly where the possible remains were located. So I got in a boat with DNR to go around to view, because as you can tell, this line, it shows a line between Horry County and Marion County. So we were trying to figure out what jurisdiction was going to be taking over the case.
Okay, so that's the line that's going through the river. That's the county boundary?
Yes, it is.
How, you said you got into a boat and went out?
Yeah, that's fine. I remember making it.
Your Honor, I believe State's Exhibit 148 will be admitted without objection.
That's correct.
All right, State's Exhibit 148, admitted in evidence.
Showing you State's Exhibit 148, is that actually a photo of you going out towards the body?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I would ask that Exhibit 148 be published.
All right.
And I believe, who's that in the boat?
Wearing the orange, that's me, and then the one with the mask is a DNR officer, and I don't remember what his name is.
So there were several agencies who responded out to this call.
Yes, there were.
How was it decided who would, I'm jumping ahead, was that object eventually retrieved from the cypress stump?
Yes, it was.
How was it decided who would go out there to make that retrieval?
So the Marion County deputies ended up talking to the Marion County Sheriff, who said, Horry County crime scene is already here, so will they mind go ahead and processing the scene for us? Usually smaller agencies like Marion County would call in SLED to come and work cases, or an agency around them that had the resources to assist. So ultimately, it was decided that we would assist with the processing of the evidence. And like I said, I did go out with DNR to see what we have Because again, they're trying to describe it to me, but I got to be able to see it so I know what resources to get, which then our fire department was called in to bring their boat so that we could utilize their boat to pull the victim out of the water.
Can you describe what you saw as you approached this object in the river?
So the first time when I went out, I just saw the tarp, as you can probably see in the last photo you just looked at. It looked like a gray tarp, and that's what you could see floating at the time. Yes, thank you. So that is exactly what I saw the very first time that I went out. And then I began to see more as I went over the second time. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but the second time when I went out with DNR, I was in this little John boat, and the other investigator was in the fire department boat. And then I could see that it was a person as they were pulling the tarp and the human remains out of the water.
Now, these have already been admitted and published. So I'm showing you States Exhibits 48, 49, and 50.
Yes,
Okay. And so did you recognize these photos?
I do.
Okay. And did you get as close as the photo in States Exhibit 50?
I did, yes.
Okay. So if we could put up States Exhibit 50 again. So I believe you said that the fire department boat was used?
To retrieve? Yes, to retrieve, yes.
Were you present in that area when the body was retrieved?
Yes, the DNR officer and I were still kind of parched over at that same tree that you saw in the last photo. And that was just because there's no way that we were going to be able to pull the victim onto the little John boat without flipping that boat. So we were still there so that I could visually see and direct the new investigator on what to do.
What did you see as the fire department was pulling the body out of the river?
I could see parts of a human body. I could see additional tarp. I remember them saying it's hung on something and them trying to figure out why they couldn't load the victim onto the boat. And then ultimately they found ropes, and it was connected to a cinder blocks. So they just kept pulling and pulling, and were finally able to get the cinder blocks as well on the boat.
Okay, thank you. First indulgence. So I'm going to send no objection to 52. Okay. Your Honor, the state would move to admit States Exhibit 52 and 54. I believe that will be without objection.
All right, States Exhibits 52 and 54 admitted into evidence without objection.
So if you could look at States Exhibits 52 and 54 and tell me if that accurately reflects, before we publish it, accurately reflects what you saw.
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, at this time I would ask that they be published. All right. So let's start with Exhibit 52. Can you describe what we're seeing in States Exhibit 52?
Yes, so the blue tarp, I believe that's probably one of the firefighters' arms that you're seeing. And then the blue tarp is what the firefighters use to put down on the front of the boat so that they can pull the victim up onto the boat. And the gray tarp is what the victim was in. And then you can see it's like a green tie strap is what I would refer to it as. And you should also be able to see in the corner up here. It's harder to tell in the photo, but in person you could tell that it was a human being.
And then if we can go to State's Exhibit 54.
And this is the rope that I was referring to, and the cinder block that was attached and wrapped around the victim.
After the body was brought to shore, can you give us a more full description of sort of how the body was wrapped?
Yes, so as the fire department was pulling the victim onto the boat, the victim moved a little in the wrapped tarp because of the weight of the cinder block. And they weren't prepared for a cinder block. They were just thinking that it was just somebody wrapped in a tarp. So the victim was moved a little when they pulled him up. But then when we got to shore, so the fire department boat with the victim, and then myself and the DNR officer followed behind. We got to shore, and then we were able to take photos of the victim who was wrapped in the tarp and then wrapped in a couple of blankets. He was dressed, and there were zip ties and the rope that you saw, as well as that brick.
Where before you removed the tarp, where did you see the zip ties?
On the outside of the tarp, if I remember correctly. I would have to look back.
Okay. And eventually was the tarp taken off of him?
It was.
Can you tell us what you saw?
Like for the victim?
Yes.
So the victim was wearing a hooded sweatshirt, pants, shoes. There was a pack of opened cigarettes in his pocket, a lighter in his pocket. The victim was badly decomposed, so it almost looked like he was somewhat mummified. And it was hard to tell, but there did look like there was a couple of small holes in his shirt. And but again, if someone is in water for a long period of time, it would be difficult to see small wounds.
Was there were you able to see a lot of blood?
No.
Did that surprise you?
No, it didn't, because again, there was no gaping wound or a head laceration, or there was no large holes, so you wouldn't really see a lot of blood. Even if there was a large hole, you wouldn't expect to see a lot of blood if someone was submerged in water for a while.
Did you or the other crime scene investigator who was with you take photos of the tarp once the victim was removed?
Yes, we did.
Your Honor, the state would ask to admit Exhibit 55, I believe, is without objection.
Any objection?
Yes, sir, Your Honor, without objection.
State's Exhibit 55, admitted in evidence without objection.
Is that a photo of the tarp after the victim was removed?
It is.
Your Honor, I would ask that this be published.
All right.
55. So what, if anything, did you notice about the tarp, or can you just describe what we're seeing?
So the tarp was very sandy from being in the water, and then also pulling him onto shore. And the zip ties are at both ends of the tarp. So you can't really see it in this photo, but at the top end, there's a zip tie, just like there is on the bottom. And you can see the extra part of the zip tie on the bottom, right next to the eyelets.
Did you or other investigators collect that tarp?
Yes, we did.
What did you do with it?
So everything that was collected right then, I'll go back. It was decided that this was going to be Meagan County's case. At the time, we didn't know who the male was that was deceased. So Meagan County was taking the case. We collected everything and signed it over to Meagan County Sheriff's Office. Ultimately, after the autopsy and we were able to determine who the victim was, we then went back and took custody of all of those items and brought them back to the Horry County Police Department.
I'm going to approach with State's Exhibit 131. Do you recognize what this is?
I do.
What is it?
So the box is titled Gray Tarp from Victim on Scene. And this is my handwriting, and this is how it was ultimately packaged. Do you want to open it?
Yeah. Your Honor, with the court's permission, since it's not published yet, may I just walk around the witness stand so she can open it?
May I sneak in, Your Honor?
You can just, if you recognize it from there.
Yes.
Preston, do you want to come up before I publish it, or ask that it be published?
Yeah, Your Honor.
No objection. Your Honor, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Was 131 admitted? I would ask that 131 be admitted. I believe it's without objection. Sorry. And then I would ask that it be published.
No objection.
No, I was sorry.
No, thank you.
131, admitted in evidence, without objection.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. And is the tarp wrapped in, I guess, protective plastic?
It is.
And why is that?
Due to it's a biohazard, obviously, because someone that was deceased was inside the tarp, which is inside the biohazard bag.
Okay, so if you could just lift up the wrapped tarp and explain how you recognize that it is the tarp that was recovered that day.
So it is labeled with the case number and the description that it is a gray tarp. Every piece of evidence has a tag, which is here, this white tag. It feels like a tarp. It's my handwriting. It's sealed on the back with the evidence seal with the date and my initials. Inside the box with my handwriting, the date, and the initials.
That there were zip ties on either end of the tarp.
There were.
Were those also recovered?
Yes,
And same thing, they went initially to Marion County and then back to Horry County?
yes.
And Your Honor, I believe there's no objection to the admission of State's Exhibit 127 and 128.
Any objection?
No, sir, Your Honor.
All right, State's Exhibit 127, 128, admitted into evidence.
Are those the zip ties that were removed from the chart?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would ask that these be published.
All right.
And then showing, I believe you said when the tarp was sort of unwrapped that the remains were wrapped in other material?
Yes. A couple of blankets.
Your Honor, I would move for admission of State's Exhibits 129 and 130 without objection, I believe.
Any objection?
No, sir.
State's Exhibits 129 and 130, admitted into evidence without objection.
And if you could look at those and tell me if those are the blankets or the sheets that were recovered from the victim's body.
Yes.
And again, how do you recognize that?
So they have the labels up here at the top. Like I was saying, every piece of evidence has a label. But I just recognize it from collecting it and packaging it.
Your Honor, I would ask that Exhibits 129 and 130 be published.
All right.
Okay, and then you also, getting my work out. You also talked about, I know, I didn't know this morning. There, a cinder block that had been secured around the victim.
Yes.
Was that seized and taken into first Marion County and then Horry County evidence?
Yes, that's correct.
No objection.
Do you want to know?
I got a bad back.
Do you want to
Oh, sure, I'll come here.
Let me grab it.
What page number is that?
36, Your Honor.
Would you like me to hear it? I know you're talking to me. You're tougher than me, sir.
Your Honor, I believe that it's being admitted without objection.
Any objection?
No, sir, Your Honor.
State's Exhibit 36, admitted into evidence without objection.
And again, Your Honor, with your permission, we'll go up so that Captain Wilson can open it.
I wrapped it like a Christmas present.
Okay, now, if you can take that out and just tell me if that is the cinder block that was recovered from the victim. And if so, Your Honor, I'd ask that it be published.
All right.
This is,
Okay, so if you can, I'm making you carry it now, so
Okay.
if you can just kind of open up the box and show it.
Your Honor, may I
Oh,
walk back?
I'm sorry, Your Honor, that's Exhibit 56. 56, not
56?
56, not 36.
State's Exhibit 56, not 36, is admitted into evidence without objection.
Your Honor, may I walk down with it? Thank you. Here's the zipper block. Everyone can see that?
I'll take the whole box back. Can you put it back on that box?
And then put it
And
on
then
the
put it on the table, yeah.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Did your involvement in this case continue after the recovery of, well, let me back up. Were those remains eventually identified as the remains of Gregory Rice?
They were.
Did your involvement in the case continue to include a search or a processing of the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home?
Yes, it did.
At the time that you did that search, did Horry County have any definitive information on where a crime scene might be?
No.
Do you, and if you don't, that's fine, do you know what directed attention to the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home?
I probably did then, but I don't remember now what actually directed us in that direction.
And basically, as crime scene, you kind of go where they ask you to go and process the scene.
Correct.
So did you, on November 13th of 2020, participate in the execution of a search warrant at the Myrtle Beach Funeral Home?
Yes, I did.
What were you looking for there?
So ultimately, we were looking for any type of physical evidence that would suggest an assault occurred there. So like cleaned up blood, body fluids, any evidence of a shooting, investigation, just to see if something possibly occurred there. So we were looking for body fluids, blood evidence, firearm casings, projectiles, that type of stuff.
Were you ever able to definitively determine that there was a crime scene there?
No.
You said that you were aware that the remains had been identified as Greg Rice. Did you ever learn how he had been killed?
Yes, we were advised that he had been shot during autopsy. There were multiple projectiles found in the victim's body that were collected.
Were those 22 caliber bullets?
I believe so.
Okay. In your, I guess it'll be about almost 26 years of law enforcement, have you received training at each one of your departments?
Yes, I have.
Has that training included training on firearms?
Yes.
Have you, in fact, carried a firearm as part of your profession for the last, what did I just say, 29 years?
26.
26. Yeah.
Yes, I have.
So are you familiar with different types of weapons and different calibers of weapons?
Yes, I am.
What, if any, significance did it have to you that the victim had been shot with a 22 caliber firearm?
Objection, Your Honor. This is speculative. I don't understand what this is. Hey, I don't understand the question.
I'm sorry. Could you
I'll
repeat that?
Certainly. Based on your years of experience, what, if any, significance did it have to you that the victim had been shot with multiple times with a 22 caliber firearm?
So a 22 caliber would leave a very small wound or a small hole, regardless of what the bullet is penetrating. Therefore, it would be more difficult to see.
I'm not objecting here, now that I know where the answer is headed, she's trying to qualify her as some kind of expert, it appears, in forensics. She didn't do the autopsy, she was trying to skip around that and have her testify about bullet holes and what a bullet hole would leave. It's not her area of expertise. Thank you, Your Honor.
You can continue your answer. I believe you were saying that it would be smaller holes, smaller wounds.
Yes. So with over 15 years experience in crime scene, I have worked a lot of deaths, unfortunately, due to homicide and sometimes suicide. So on top of the training and the hands-on experience, I can attest that a .22 caliber firearm would leave a very small hole in regardless of what it is impacting. So that made sense to me in us not really being able to see large holes on the victim when we recovered him from the river that day. So that made sense to me. Plus it would make sense to me for maybe someone not hearing a assault that occurred with the victim.
Yes, Your Honor.
Just saying, unless she's a ballistics expert, I'll strike that last statement.
But if I can, I'll rephrase a question.
All right.
Counsel has asked a number of other law enforcement witnesses if there were any reports of shots fired on the night that Greg Rice was killed. Based on your experience with different handguns or firearms, would the caliber that was used have any effect on that?
Sustained.
Okay. In your experience, you said that you've processed a number of scenes, whether they're homicides or suicides, in your 20-plus year career. How many cases involving shootings have you responded to or participated in?
Hundreds.
For each one of those cases, has there always been a call from anyone regarding shots being fired?
No.
Nothing further. I'm gathering Mr. Preston Burton will be asking questions.
Cross-examination.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. In crime scene, that's what you are typically involved in, crime scene?
I was at this time, yes.
Okay. What involvement do y'all have with 911 calls and reports? And you're not getting that in part of the investigation, are you?
What do you mean?
Well, you're not getting information about whether or not there was a call from a neighbor about hearing somebody shoot a gun 5 times. Are you?
So usually when we are investigating a crime, we do what's called a round table. And so the crime scene investigator gets with the detective and then the supervisors, and everybody discusses the case as to how the call came in, what happened before, what the detective has, what the crime scene investigator has found, so on and so forth.
Okay. And so let's answer me this. Where is the crime scene? Where is the crime scene?
I don't know, sir. I can't tell you where the crime scene is.
I'm sorry.
Objection, Your Honor.
Where is
What?
The address, quite frankly.
Where's the crime scene?
I can only tell you where the victim was found.
Okay. So you can't tell us as we sit here today, in a murder trial, where the crime scene was.
Are you asking me the question again? I'm
I
sorry.
am.
Okay. No, I cannot tell you exactly where the crime scene was. That is correct.
Can you tell me, did you investigate any other potential crime scenes in this case?
in regard to this victim.
That's correct?
So we did search his residence
That's right.
and
No,
his.
I'm sorry, I didn't cut you off.
Oh no, I was just saying. You go ahead.
And that was on October 16th, right?
Yes, that is before he was found.
Okay. And that was 2 weeks, right? About 2 weeks after the date of death?
So October the 16th is when I first learned that he was reported as a missing person. And they asked us to come and search his house. When I say they, the detectives asked crime scene to come and assist.
Okay. And you did that, right?
We did.
Okay. And to do that, did you park your car in the parking lot anywhere around the apartment?
Yes.
Okay. Did you get out of your car?
Yes.
Did you walk to the apartment?
Yes.
Did you take the sidewalk?
Yes.
And when you did any of that, you seem very thorough. When you did any of that, did you find any shell casings?
No.
Did you see any blood stains?
No.
2 weeks later, did anybody approach you and say, ho, 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 we're glad you're here because we heard some gunfire on October 2nd?
I don't have that information. I don't know.
Nobody approached you, though? No neighbors approached you?
No.
All of these items that have been identified in your round table, did it ever get to you? Those were all items that Chris Don Tell purchased?
Yes.
Okay. He went to Lowe's by himself and got the center block, right?
Yes.
He got the zip tie.
I don't remember everything that he purchased, but I do know that that was mentioned during our roundtable.
That's right. The round table, they told you he got the center block, he got the tarp, and he got the zip tie and a Pepsi. Is that right?
Like I said, I don't know exactly what he purchased, but I do remember there being video of him at the store purchasing several items.
Okay. And when you were investigating Myrtle Beach Funeral Home, did you lift any fingerprints that were relevant to this case?
I don't recall lifting any fingerprints.
No fingerprints. Okay. How about any relevant footprints?
No.
Did you lift any? Did you do any analysis for Meagan Jackson? You involved in that? Did you see any? Did you try to lift any fingerprints for Meagan Jackson?
No, I did not.
Did you do that at Greg Rice's apartment?
For fingerprints?
Yes, ma'am.
No, I did not.
Did you get any footprints of Meagan Jackson at Greg Rice's apartment?
We didn't look for footprints. We did spray the apartment.
Oh, that's right. Did y'all get a sample, like a little sample for Greg Rice's DNA?
Like his hair brush and his toothbrush, yes.
Okay. And why would you collect that evidence?
Objection, Your Honor. Captain Wilson is actually not the investigator who collected those items.
But if you notice why it was collected, I'll allow a question.
So, like I was saying, he was reported missing at the beginning of October, and then October 16th when we were doing the search of his residence. Because he had been missing for that long, we wanted to have something with his DNA to have as a standard so that we could send a sled in the event he were found.
Okay. And that was in fact done, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And when you, at one of your roundtables, did you get to hear that blood was found on the shoe of Chris Dontel? Isn't that right?
Yes.
But not Meagan Jackson.
Like not her shoes?
Not anything related to Meagan Jackson. No article of clothing of hers had any of Greg Rice's blood on it. Is that correct?
As far as I know.
As far as you know. But we got it on the top of Chris Dontel's shoe and the bottom. Isn't that right?
I don't remember where it was on his shoe, but yes, there was blood on his shoe.
Your Honor, courts and indulgence, please. I don't have any further questions, Your Honor.
All right, pretty correct.
Just very briefly, Your Honor. So if, just trying to do my math. Greg Rice is killed on, Greg Rice is killed on October 2nd. The body is recovered, his body is recovered November 7th to 8th, so a little more than a month passes, correct? Am I doing my math right? October
Yeah,
2nd?
I don't know the exact date that he was killed. I just know he was reported missing, I think, around October 4th or 5th, and then we were at his place on the 16th, and then his body was found on November 8th.
Would the passage of time from October 2nd to even October 16th, would that potentially make a crime scene more difficult to find?
Yes, it could very well. Plus, depending on the weapon that is used or how someone dies will depend on how much blood would be present to begin with.
If Gregory Rice was shot down the street from his apartment on the road leading out towards Clay Pond Road, would you expect to find shell casings or blood as you parked your patrol car in the parking lot, got out of your car, walked on the sidewalk, and conducted your search at his apartment if he was killed down the road?
No. And we would have no reason to go down the road searching for that unless the detectives were able to canvass the area and get video surveillance to say that, hey, we saw the victim walking this direction, and then we would go search that area.
If the location where Greg Rice was killed was not learned by investigators until more than 4 years after he was killed, would that affect your ability to collect any physical evidence from a crime scene?
Yes, if it's on the roadway or on the side of the road, just due from traffic going up and down the roadway, and then you have lawnmowers cutting the grass and so on and so forth.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down.
Your Honor, I would ask that Captain Wilson be released from her stand.
Any objection?
No, sir, Your Honor.
All right, you're pretty good.
Thank you.
Please raise your right hand and put your left hand on top of it. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the evidence trying to give report in this case be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Get you to state your name and then spell your last name for the court.
Yep. My name is Christopher Drew Edwards, EDWARDS.
Court's indulgence, I'm just trying to...
All right. Any objection?
No, sir, Your Honor.
United States Exhibits 59, 60, 61, and 149 are admitted in evidence.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Detective Edwards,
Yes, ma'am.
where do you work?
I work for the Horry County Police Department.
How long have you worked there?
18 years, since October 2006.
What is your current assignment?
I'm currently assigned to the Narcotics and Special Operations Division as a gang investigator
How long have you been in that assignment?
since April of last year.
What was your assignment back in October of 2020?
I was assigned to the violent crime section of our investigations division.
So what types of crimes did you investigate?
We investigated anything from homicides, armed robberies, to overdose deaths.
What types of things did you do during the course of those investigations?
Common things we would do, we'd find witnesses, interview them, canvass areas where the crime occurred to find any video or evidence that we could find.
And that's not a comprehensive list?
No.
When an investigation comes in, how is it assigned to a lead investigator?
So if it's a call out, like something happens in the middle of the night and they need an investigator right away, the on-call person would get it. If it's something that happens over the weekend and it's like a property crime, it would be assigned, the next business day.
And is it common for other investigators to assist the lead investigator with some of these tasks that you have to do?
Yeah. Some of these cases can get very complicated with a lot of work to do, so the work can be split amongst different investigators.
Directing your attention to this case, did you become involved in the investigation into the disappearance and murder of Gregory Rice?
I did.
Were you the lead investigator?
No, ma'am.
Do you know who was?
Detective Susie.
Did you, in fact, however, help Detective Susie with some of the assorted tasks?
I did.
So directing your attention first to November 8th of 2020, did you respond to a call about a body being found in the Little PD River?
I did.
And Your Honor, may I put Exhibit 51 up again? It's been admitted and published. Were you familiar with that area prior to responding there?
I was.
Can you describe that area?
Yep. So Pitt's Landing is on Highway 378. It's as you're exiting Conway. It's like one of the last things in the county before you get into Marion County. It's a boat landing. It's a dirt lot surrounded by trees, and then you have the river.
Is that an accurate representation of that area?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What did you see when you got there?
When I first got there were patrol vehicles, and I believe some fire personnel were on scene.
Were there any civilians there as well?
Yes, ma'am.
And Captain Wilson testified about the kind of county boundary that runs through the river. Did that present any sort of unique jurisdictional issues?
Yes, ma'am. For us to investigate it, it would have to be within our jurisdiction.
So on the Horry County side?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When had Mr. Rice's remains been removed from the river when you got there?
No, ma'am.
Were you there when they were eventually removed?
I was.
Okay. What's going through your mind at this point?
So we were once I got there, I had to wait on Marion County crime scene, and the fire department was sending out their dive team, so it took a little bit of time for all those resources to get there. The prior month, Gregory Rice had been reported missing. And I know through some of the investigation, we had obtained some cell phone records for people close to him. So while I was waiting on them, I looked at a program called Cellhawk to see if any records showed anybody out that way near the boat landing during that prior month. There was one record that showed Chris Dontel out there a day or two after Gregory Rice had been reported missing.
Yeah. So did that lead you to believe anything in particular? Or?
That it's not very often you find a body dumped in a river. So led me to believe it could possibly be Gregory Rice.
And I may have asked you this before, but did you remain on scene as the body was removed from the river?
I did.
Okay. Can you describe what you saw when the fire rescue boat got back with his remains?
So when the fire rescue brought the body back in, there was a tarp that was secured on each end with zip ties. There was a ratchet strap attached to it with one cinder block attached to the ratchet strap. The body was in a very advanced state of decomposition and could not identify him just by looking at him.
Trying to find another. honestly, I don't feel like carrying the cinder block again, so I'm going to approach with State's Exhibit 149, which I believe has been admitted without objection. Does that look to be a photo of the cinder block that was recovered?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, made that one published?
Yes.
Did you notice anything unusual about the cinder block?
It's not a cinder block you typically see. It's, I'm pretty sure everybody can picture a cinder block in their head. This one, if you turned it sideways, it had little tiny slots in it instead of a big open square. Kind of stood out.
Showing, if I can republish, State's Exhibit 54. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
And Captain Wilson identified the tarp and the zip ties. Were you there when, and you can see the ratchet strap in that photo, were you there when that was recovered?
Yes, ma'am.
And Your Honor, I don't believe there's any objection to the admission of State's Exhibit 126.
Any objection? No, sir, Your Honor. All right, State's Exhibit 126 admitted into evidence without objection.
Is that the ratchet strap?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, I would ask that this be published to the jury.
All right.
Were there, when Mr. Rice's remains were removed from the tarp, did anything catch your attention as being significant to him?
Yes, ma'am. So we had a Facebook photo of Gregory. He's wearing a black ball cap with the comic book Punisher logo on it. He's also wearing a Village Surf Shop t-shirt. And we had been told he liked to smoke Marlboro Reds. This person had a pack of those in his pocket. He was also wearing, he was described to always buy cheap shoes from Walmart. It's just what he liked to wear, and that's what this person was wearing.
Okay. Now, let me go back to the tarp. It's wrapped up in a nice biohazard kit. Were you able to look at the tarp from State's Exhibit 55, which has already been admitted and published?
Yep.
Was there anything in particular about the tarp that you were able to use as an investigative lead to find out where it had been purchased?
Yes, ma'am. The brand on it led us to look at Lowe's home improvement stores.
Were you looking just for the tarp, or were you looking for other items like the ratchet strap, the zip tie, the cinder block?
No, we were looking for somebody that might have purchased all those items together.
Were you able to find any evidence of a transaction where all of those items were purchased together?
We were.
And where had that purchase been made?
The Lowe's home improvement store on Seaboard Street.
Who did you speak to when you went to the Lowe's home improvement store?
Loss prevention employee named Robert McKnight.
And I'm approaching with, Your Honor, these have been admitted without objection. So that's State's 59. Oops. Bless you.
Bless you.
60 and 61.
Yes, ma'am.
Are those items that you received from Mr. McKnight?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, I would ask that 59, 60, and 61 be published to the jury.
All right.
Start with 59. And what is depicted in State's Exhibit 59?
It's tar up ratchet strap, zip ties, and cinder blocks.
So newer ones, right? Not the ones.
Yeah, these are the ones. These are just like stock images from Lowe's.
I'm sorry.
It's like a stock image from Lowe's.
And showing you State's Exhibit 60. Put that up. What is depicted in Exhibit 60?
That would be a transaction receipt for the items purchased on October 3rd, 2020.
Okay, and does that also have a timestamp on it?
Yep, so it says 14:54 hours, which would be 2:54 p.m.
And then if we could bring up Exhibit 61. What is depicted in Exhibit 61?
That would be Christopher Dontel with the items in his shopping cart.
Your Honor, I'm approaching with Exhibit 62 and 63. I believe there will not be an objection, but Detective Edwards, you recognize State's Exhibits 62 and 63.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you recognize them to be?
Surveillance video, and I think it's both surveillance video.
Is one from the point of sale and one from the parking lot?
Yeah.
Are those both from the Lowe's improvement?
Yes, ma'am, on Seaport Street.
And how do you recognize them?
I signed them.
And did you review them as well?
Yes, ma'am.
So, did the stills depicted in Exhibit 61 appear to come from the point of sale surveillance video?
They do.
And you said that you reviewed the parking lot surveillance video on that plan.
Yes, ma'am.
What, if anything, did you see that would be relevant to this case in the parking lot surveillance video?
After Dontel purchased the items, he took them outside and placed them into his county-issued Ford Explorer.
Okay. Probably should have asked this before, but were you familiar with Christopher Dontel prior to this investigation?
I was.
How?
From working violent crimes, we deal with coroner's office, unfortunately, pretty frequently, and I had worked cases with them before.
Were you familiar with the defendant?
I was.
And how?
She comes to pick the people up whenever they pass away.
Of course it will. Nothing further at this time. If you'd answer any questions from Mr. Preston Britton.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for being here.
No.
Just a couple questions, really.
Yes, sir.
The cell hawk stuff, did you do that? How did you get the cell hawk that?
I just logged into the website.
Okay. You weren't involved in any kind of extraction for phones?
No, Cellhawk would be like cellular CDR records. It wouldn't be like an actual download of a phone.
It's not download.
It's like call detail records.
Call detail
Somebody had.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Maybe out of just curiosity, but these cigarettes in his pocket. I mean, they've been in the water for 30 days. I mean,
Well, it was a pack. I didn't like open the pack of cigarettes.
it was a sealed pack.
I don't remember if it was sealed or not.
And just want to confirm on that receipt, we did have a Pepsi.
Pepsi Zero.
Pepsi Zero.
Yep.
That's perfect.
Read right?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you may step down.